Adele, the clan leader, gives Desmond some devastating news. Kneeling, Desmond is ordered to leave the clan forever. Disbelief takes hold of him, unable to process what he just heard. Desperate, he asks Adele for an explanation for his sudden expulsion. Desmond's simple question unleashes Adele's pent-up fury. Adele accuses him of being the only one at fault for the failure in the last dungeon, calling him an incompetent enchanter and leaving Desmond speechless. Desmond tries to defend himself, remembering that he did detect the danger, but he was ignored before he could finish his argument. An object is thrown forcefully at his head. The impact injures him, silencing his protest with pain. Enraged, Adele orders Desmond to take responsibility for his own mistakes and grabs him violently, accusing him of trying to blame him for his own magical incompetence. He calls him ungrateful, reminding him of the favor he did by recruiting him, and his threat turns lethal. Just in time, a female figure intervenes, ordering Adele to stop. She calmly warns him that this kind of behavior is unacceptable outside of a dungeon. Adele's frustration is obvious, as Desmond looks at his savior, Marina. Ignoring the warning, Adele throws Desmond to the ground, insulting him one last time. Marina changes the subject, asking Desmond about his scouting method, revealing that she is also a mage. He reveals that his method was enhanced smell, a technique she seems to recognize instantly. Her face darkens, and she accuses him of lying, completely discrediting his ability. Desmond insists his magic is real, asking Marina to stop making things up. He tries to explain that his magic is special, even though it doesn't meet the usual standards. Marina scoffs at his power, pointing out that a competent enchanter should be much stronger. With an air of superiority, she reminds him that the clan's reputation as supernovas is on the line. Siding with Adele, she coldly declares that there's no room on the team for dead weight. Defeated, Desmond mutters that without his help, the clan would be in serious trouble. Adele steps closer, dismissing his warning and assuring everyone that there's nothing to worry about. A new warrior steps in, as Adele reveals he has already found a replacement for Desmond. The warrior calls for the new member, while Desmond watches in disbelief from the ground at a smiling, self-confident, B-rank mage, who introduces herself as the clan's new enchanter. The new mage presents herself to the clan, as Desmond watches from the ground, completely humiliated. With a radiant smile, she expresses her delight in joining the famous Sword Clan. Adele puts a hand on Desmond's shoulder, looking down on him with contempt and superiority. The leader taunts him, pointing out that the arrival of a higher-ranked member invalidates any complaints. Marina joins in the mockery, confirming his dismissal with a cruel, satisfied smile. Even the warrior accuses him of having taken advantage of the clan's abilities for his own personal gain, and the entire team looks at him with disdain, as Adele insults him one more time. With a resigned yet firm look, Desmond accepts his fate and decides to leave. As he heads for the exit, his ex-teammates celebrate his departure and demand he leave his belongings behind. Just before he leaves, his eyes open wide, revealing an intense blue glow, hinting at a hidden power. His hidden power is revealed to be Appraisal Eye, an ability to see stats numerically. He reflects on how, without his enchantments, his own skills wouldn't even let him enter a C-rank dungeon. A nostalgic memory washes over him, remembering the promise they made as rookies to reach the top together. The betrayal hits him hard, regretting that he believed they were true teammates as he walks away from the city. Desmond ventures into the lonely countryside, leaving his old life behind. Sitting alone, he wonders what he'll do now. Knowing he can't survive without a team, the wound of betrayal is too fresh, and the thought of joining another party seems impossible. His meditation is interrupted by an adventurer who trips and falls spectacularly near him. The man is terrified as he looks at a mage, wondering about the presence of a catoblepus in the area. An imposing B-rank magical beast emerges from the trees, confirming his worst fears. The D-rank adventurer panics, while his mage companion tries to calm him down without success. Confidently, the mage reveals she is B-rank, and casts a strength enhancement spell on her companion. However, the beast attacks immediately, sending the warrior flying through the air before the very eyes of the stunned mage. Now, the imposing catoblepus looms over the two adventurers, paralyzed with fear. The creature opens its jaws, ready to devour them, while they can only watch, in terror. A bitter memory crosses Desmond's mind, regretting that his old team never understood in his true power. He recalls how they made fun of his magic for only increasing stats by 20 points. Determined to act, Desmond raises his staff, which begins to glow with an intense green energy. With a serious expression, he invokes his own strength enhancement spell. The magical aura envelops the two adventurers, surprising them just as the beast is about to attack. The warrior, imbued with an overwhelming power, prepares for the impact with new determination. With renewed strength, he manages to deflect the beast's attack, stopping its advance cold. The catoblepus recoils, growling with fury at being repelled by prey it considered weak. Both adventurers look at each other in disbelief, unable to understand the source of that sudden power boost. The beast, enraged, ignores its original prey and lunges directly at Desmond. Desmond casts another enchantment, allowing the warrior to move at an incredible speed and wound the beast. With a serious look, Desmond reveals that the power of his magic goes far beyond a simple increase of 20 points. His true power doesn't add, it multiplies stats by 20, a secret his old clan never knew. The warrior looks at his own hands, stunned by the feat he just performed. Desmond sighs wearily, as the adventurers celebrate their unlikely victory against a higher-ranked enemy. Desmond reflects on how he tried to explain his power in vain, lamenting that they never listened to him. While he's lost in thought, the warrior he saved approaches to thank him. The white-haired mage also watches him, intrigued by the mysterious enchanter, standing in the distance. She wonders if the man who saved them is the famous Desmond. Back in the city, Desmond finds himself in front of a bulletin board full of guild requests. With a sigh, he realizes that to keep exploring more dungeons he needs a new team. Accepting his new reality, he steels himself for the difficult task of finding a new clan. The world is full of dungeons, ancient ruins scattered everywhere, waiting to be explored. Inside these ruins lie ancient knowledge and priceless treasures. This is how the world works. Adventurers risk their lives in search of fortune and evolution. Desmond knows that to explore more dungeons, forming a team is essential. However, upon checking his own stats, he realizes that no one would want to recruit him. His enchanter class gives him almost 0 strength and, surprisingly, 0 intelligence points. This deficiency limits him to using only the most basic magic, an obstacle he has never been able to overcome. While he's lamenting his situation, an armored figure stops right in front of him. A female voice asks if he's looking for a new clan to join. Honestly, Desmond admits that he is, since he was just kicked out of his. The woman is outraged to hear this, criticizing his former team's blindness for not seeing his talent. Her unexpected defense leaves Desmond completely bewildered and speechless. As he looks up, he recognizes the famous adventurer Cynthia, the mage he saved. Cynthia greets him with a familiar smile, revealing they've known each other for a long time. A flashback reveals they are childhood friends, and Desmond is surprised that it's been 3 years since they left their hometown. They both fondly recall their reunion, confirming their bond as childhood friends. Suddenly, Desmond's attention is drawn to a shiny insignia Cynthia is wearing. With astonishment, he realizes it's an S-rank identification plate, the highest possible. He enthusiastically congratulates her, reminding her that very few adventurers in the world reach that prestigious rank. The ranking pyramid confirms that S-rank is the pinnacle of power, reserved only for the elite. With a genuine smile, Desmond tells her how proud he is of her as her childhood friend. Desmond's compliment makes her blush, and she shyly admits that his words make her very happy. Cynthia's unexpected reaction catches Desmond by surprise, leaving him completely flustered and unsure how to act. Desmond blushes thinking about how beautiful Cynthia has become, remembering she's 2 years older than him. He recalls that the real reason he became an adventurer was to become someone worthy of standing by her side. A childhood memory reveals a promise they made to each other: to conquer an S-rank dungeon together. However, Desmond assumes she has already forgotten that pact, feeling a bit foolish for still holding on to it. Suddenly, their attention turns towards the walls, as Cynthia mentions the name Espada. She explains that Espada is the famous rookie team everyone's talking about, who have already cleared multiple B-rank dungeons. With a smile, Cynthia reveals to him that the clan's success was solely because he was one of its members. His friend's statement leaves Desmond completely bewildered, not understanding what she means. She insists that his enchantments were always the best, surprising Desmond, who thought his true power was a secret. He blushes, happy that she recognized his worth, as Cynthia proposes they team up now that he's free. With an obvious blush, Cynthia formally asks Desmond to join her clan. He's surprised by the offer, and she excitedly explains that the admission test is the next day. With total confidence, she gets closer and assures him that she has no doubt he'll pass the test. The idea of an entrance exam resonates in Desmond's mind, and he seriously considers the proposal, although he doubts he can pass being a D-rank adventurer. The idea of joining Cynthia's clan motivates him. With a smile, he accepts the challenge, much to his friend's surprise and joy. Cynthia is overjoyed and suggests they go sign up immediately, without giving him time to react. She takes him by the hand and drags him through the city, and even though he doesn't feel mentally prepared, her joy is contagious and makes him happy. Suddenly, his smile fades, and he nervously asks where they're heading in such a hurry. Cynthia stops, a little embarrassed by Desmond's question. Apologetically, she reveals that her clan's name is Chevalier Garden. Desmond turns pale, as he knows that name much better than she imagines. It's revealed that Chevalier Garden is the largest and most powerful clan in the entire city of Bristol. Not only that, it's the force with the most adventurers in the world, on the verge of conquering an S-rank dungeon. Overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the clan, Desmond tries to back out of his decision. However, Cynthia holds his hand tightly, preventing him from escaping. She calls him by his childhood nickname, Des, to get his attention. Leaning in close, she whispers that it's time to fulfill the promise they made as children. Her words and her closeness leave Desmond completely blushing and unable to react. The word promise echoes in Desmond's mind, leaving him breathless. A memory from his childhood confirms that Cynthia hasn't forgotten their pact to conquer an S-rank dungeon together. Desmond's heart starts racing, blushing completely knowing that she still values their promise. Suddenly, panic sets in as he realizes the magnitude of what he just agreed to. Despite his doubts, Cynthia drags him towards the clan's imposing fortress, being convinced of his success. Finally, the day of the admission exam arrives at the majestic Chevalier Garden headquarters. Upon registering, he's given the number 55 and is told to wait for the test to begin. Nervously, Desmond accepts his participant number, feeling completely out of place. Upon entering, he is amazed by the luxurious interior of the headquarters, which looks like a real castle. He observes the crowd of applicants, realizing that the competition to join the strongest clan is overwhelming. Holding his number, Desmond reflects on how incredible it is that Cynthia belongs to such a prestigious clan. It's revealed that the test consists of forming teams of 4 to defeat 10 goblins in a D-rank dungeon. While he considers the test to be quite basic, he wonders if Cynthia will be there. Suddenly, a voice announces the start of the event, capturing the attention of all the applicants. Everyone looks up towards a figure, standing imposingly on the upper balcony. A woman with glasses announces that they will receive a greeting from Cynthia MacDonald, the commander of the 1st Brigade. The rest of the applicants murmur with excitement, while Desmond can't believe what he just heard. His face contorts into an expression of pure disbelief as he processes the news. The revelation leaves him completely stunned, unable to comprehend the situation. An organization chart reveals that Cynthia isn't just a member, but the commander of the 1st Brigade, the most exclusive unit in the clan with just 5 people. The 1st Brigade is made up of 5 members, the world's strongest hand-picked adventurers. Desmond can't take his eyes off Cynthia, who stands imposingly on the balcony. With a serious gaze and gleaming armor, she radiates the aura of a true commander, while the other applicants admire her in awe. Desmond is still blushing and completely bewildered. She addresses the crowd, thanking them for their interest and asking them to show their full potential in the test. Her inspiring speech fires up the applicants, who respond with a roar of enthusiasm and determination. Amidst the general euphoria, Desmond remains paralyzed, unable to process his friend's new reality. His mind goes blank, trying to connect the girl from his childhood with the leader before him. After the speech, the adventurers start moving around the Great Hall, preparing for the start of the exam. He overhears other applicants talking about their admiration for Cynthia, dreaming of joining her prestigious brigade. Despite being happy for her, Desmond feels his friend's success is almost unreal. The huge distance between their worlds makes him feel lonely, until a familiar voice snaps him out of his thoughts. Suddenly, Cynthia appears in front of him, hidden under a hood, and thanks him for coming. Desmond panics upon recognizing her, unable to believe the commander is talking to him. Her sudden appearance leaves all the other applicants around them completely stunned. The crowd erupts in excited murmurs, confirming that Cynthia herself is among them. The others wonder who Desmond is, while she explains that she couldn't help but come see him in person. To everyone's surprise, she gets closer and gives him a kiss on the cheek, wishing him luck on the test. Completely blushing and speechless, he barely manages to stammer a thank you as she walks away. Desmond stands motionless, processing that the commander of the most powerful clan came just to encourage him. Filled with a newfound determination, Desmond grips his staff, ready to give it his all with the motivation of joining Cynthia's clan. He walks confidently towards the testing area. Suddenly, a blonde girl stops him with a shout, catching him completely by surprise. She asks him if he has number 55, while he's still confused by the abrupt interruption. To his amazement, the girl shows him that she also received the same participant number. Desmond realizes the truth. Fate has put them on the same team for the exam. The energetic swordswoman introduces herself as Rin, a frontline attacker ready for action. Just as Desmond is about to answer, another figure approaches, completing their team. An elf mage named Dorothy calmly introduces herself, revealing she also has number 55. Dorothy's incredibly soft voice leaves him speechless, barely able to articulate a response. Suddenly, an imposing figure stands before them, interrupting the introductions. A sturdy dwarf introduces himself as Garen, the shield-bearer and 4th member of Team 55. Overwhelmed by the situation, Desmond barely manages to stutter his own name. Rin welcomes him enthusiastically, while Desmond asks to be called Des for short. The team is led to the entrance of a sinister dungeon, shaped like a skull. An examiner informs them that the fearsome skull dungeon will be the stage for their test. The mission is simple: defeat 10 goblins, or retreat to end the exam. Desmond analyzes the situation, warning that even though it's a D rank, they must proceed with caution, but the warning is completely ignored. Rin charges into battle with boundless energy. Desmond desperately tries to stop her, fearing her recklessness will put them in danger. As soon as he enters, he hears other aspirants muttering that their team has no chance of passing. Desmond realizes that, even though the team assignments are random, something doesn't add up. He discovers the terrible truth: Team 55 is known as the worst group in the exam's history. The news hits him hard, leaving him utterly horrified by his bad luck as he watches Rin get excited over a mushroom. Desmond loses all hope of passing, and as they venture into the dungeon, he wonders if he's cursed to always have such bad luck with his teammates. The imposing dreadful skull dungeon rises before them, ready to test their disastrous team. It's revealed that this dungeon was once B rank, but was downgraded after its core was destroyed. Now it's just a D rank place, inhabited only by weak monsters like goblins. Desmond recalls his days in high-level dungeons where, despite their success, he always got the short end of the stick when it came to loot. He wonders at what point his former comrades started treating him so poorly. Thinking back, he realizes he doesn't have a single good memory of his old clan. He looks at his eccentric companions and wonders why they're called the worst team in history. With some trepidation, he decides to approach them, hoping they aren't as terrible as the rumors say. Out of nowhere, Rin tackles him with an effusive and painful greeting that leaves him on the ground. She sits on top of him, mistaking his panicked face for hunger and worry, trying to cheer him up. Rin offers him her own snack as a special gift. She brags about how delicious her snack is, even though Desmond hasn't even tried it. Resigned, Desmond takes a bite of the bread, not knowing what else to do. To his surprise, the taste is so good it leaves him speechless, completely impressed. A bitter memory shows him how his old team treated him like a servant, demanding things and calling him useless. In contrast, he's now enjoying a snack while reflecting that with his old clan, he never even had time to eat. Dorothy timidly approaches to offer him some water, while Garand also shows concern for his well-being. Moved by their unexpected kindness, Desmond thanks them with eyes full of emotion. A small smile forms on his face as he thinks that, after all, maybe they aren't as bad as the rumors claimed. Filled with a newfound curiosity, he asks his teammates why they decided to take the exam. Rin answers enthusiastically, explaining that she is the third daughter of a noble family from a rural area. She confesses that her dream was always to be an adventurer, but her parents wanted her to get married. Now, she's determined to become the best adventurer in the world to prove that her dream wasn't wrong. Intrigued, Desmond asks Garand why he chose to be a shield-bearer, to which the dwarf responds with a simple truth about his protective role. Garand nobly declares that he doesn't need a reason to protect others, leaving Desmond impressed by his righteousness. Realizing that his companions are kind, Desmond turns to ask Dorothy about her motivations. She shyly explains that she wants to pass the exam to repay the kindness of her adoptive parents from the prestigious Chevalier Garden. Desmond's compliment completely overwhelms her, and she hides in embarrassment, feeling she doesn't deserve it. A genuine smile appears on Desmond's face as he realizes the true nature of his companions. He concludes that the nickname, the worst team, must be a mistake, since they are all kind and wonderful people. In a moment of self-criticism, he admits to himself that his reason for joining, to impress Cynthia, is the least noble of all. Despite everything, he grips his staff with renewed determination, ready to face the challenge. The team gathers, and Desmond encourages them to do their best, uniting the group with a common purpose. Full of confidence, he resolves to pass the exam for Cynthia, while Garand nonchalantly points out that he has dirt on his shoulder. Desmond thanks Garand, but the dwarf suddenly complains of pain. Without warning, Garand collapses to the ground completely motionless, believing it's a joke. Desmond laughs and asks him to stop exaggerating. However, the dwarf doesn't get up and concern begins to grow within the team. Panic grips them when they see Garand isn't responding, wondering if it's a bad joke. Rin announces in terror that the dwarf isn't breathing, which makes Desmond panic and call for a potion. Suddenly, a booming laugh echoes from the ground, revealing the prank. Garand gets up, roaring with laughter, apologizing for the joke, while Rin reminds him that they don't have many potions. Desmond, stunned, asks him if collapsing like that is something that happens to him often. The horrible truth hits him as he realizes that his teammate has a very serious problem. To understand the situation, Desmond activates his appraisal eye skill. He discovers that Rin, the swordswoman, has such low strength that she could barely defeat a single goblin. Then, he analyzes Garand, the tank, and sees that his vitality is so ridiculously low that a single blow could finish him off. Dorothy notices his horrified expression and worriedly asks if something is wrong. Hoping to find something good, Desmond focuses his attention on the team's mage. Upon analyzing Dorothy, he sees that her intelligence is high, which allows her to use powerful attack magic. Desmond praises her, but she reacts with panic, saying that using her magic would kill her. She confesses, ashamed, that her mana reserve is so small that she can only cast one spell a day. The harsh reality hits him, and a smile is forced onto his face as despair consumes him. He confirms his worst fears upon seeing that Dorothy's mana is a mere 8 points, an insignificant amount. Desmond finally understands the true and terrible meaning of the nickname, the worst team in history. His team consists of an attacker who can't defeat a single enemy, a tank who goes down in one hit, and a mage who can only use her power once a day. He bitterly concludes that he, with his basic magic, is also one of the worst. He panics at the thought that if he doesn't strengthen them all, they will not only fail, but they will be annihilated. Just then, Rin detects the ominous presence of a horde of goblins. Desperate, Desmond orders them not to move so he can cast his enchantments. But Rin, ignoring his warning, charges into the attack, believing that the first strike ensures victory. She clashes her sword against a goblin, starting the battle without any magical enhancements. Rin's attack is useless, and the goblin knocks her down effortlessly, confirming her ridiculous strength of 6 points. Still on the ground, she pretends everything is under control, while Desmond, he regrets his recklessness for attacking without any backup magic. A lone goblin takes advantage of the chaos to charge straight at Desmond, who, alerted by a shout, desperately tries to cast a spell. His eyes lock onto the danger rushing towards him. True to his word, Garan leaps in to protect him, but he goes down, taken out by a simple hit from the goblin. Exasperated, Desmond scolds the fallen dwarf, who is lying on the ground with a stunned expression. Forced to use a potion, he lays into Garan for collapsing mid-battle and questions his calling as a protector. Striking a triumphant pose, Garan reaffirms his conviction to protect others, leaving Desmond speechless while holding the empty bottle. Desmond warns them that only one potion is left, while the dwarves respond with a carefree thumbs up, but their moment of confidence is short-lived, as Garan collapses again, leaving Desmond completely dejected with a forced smile. Desmond realizes they are completely out of healing potions. Panic consumes him as he remembers they have no healer, and that just one more hit could be the end. Out of nowhere, Rin jumps between him and a goblin, shoving him aside to take the attack in his place. Desmond's eyes widen in horror as he watches his teammate's sacrifice. He kneels beside her, concerned, while she seems to be brushing off the hit. Despite the danger, he grabs her in frustration, reminding her that her role is to attack, not to defend recklessly. She responds with a shy smile, admitting that he's right. However, she declares, with conviction, that she can't just stand by while her comrades are under attack. Her words leave him breathless, moved by her unexpected sense of duty. In spite of it all, he asks what would happen if her flimsy defense left her, unable to fight. Desmond reminds her of her dream to become the greatest adventurer, but she seems to hesitate. She reveals that, above all else, the safety of her companions is her top priority. Rin's words leave him stunned, deeply moved by her unexpected loyalty. The moment is interrupted when Dorothy announces in a panic that 7 more goblins have arrived. Garan steps to the front, ordering the rest of the team to get to safety behind him. Desmond yells at him, desperately reminding him that there are no potions left, and the next hit will be the last. The dwarf turns around with a resolute look, catching a worried Desmond's attention. Desmond's expression shows a mix of confusion and fear at the dwarf's attitude. Garan admits his own weakness, but declares that he doesn't mind going down if it's to protect his friends. With a grim smile, he states he's willing to become a human shield no matter the cost. The dwarf's declaration is interrupted when Dorothy timidly turns to Desmond. She reminds him that she can only cast just one spell, clutching her staff nervously. Her one attack won't be enough to defeat the 7 goblins, let alone the 10 they need to pass. Still, she offers to sacrifice her chance of passing to save them, but Desmond flatly refuses. He reminds her of her promise to pass the exam for her adoptive parents, trying to make her reconsider. Despite his words, Dorothy's hand grips her staff even tighter, showing her firm resolve. With a determined look, she declares that passing the exam by abandoning her companions would be completely meaningless. Her words resonate with Desmond, who watches her, moved by her unexpected loyalty. He just can't understand why everyone is willing to sacrifice themselves for a team they just met. The unwavering camaraderie of his companions leaves him completely bewildered and speechless. His teammates stare at him, united by the same unwavering conviction striking a heroic pose as they explain that time is irrelevant when it comes to forging a true friendship. His team's words hit him hard, leaving him breathless, and he's completely overwhelmed with emotion. A tear escapes from his eye. The goblin horde launches their attack, but Rin looks strangely excited for the fight. The dwarf braces for impact, a look of pure strain on his face, as his teammates scream in alarm, seeing that the dwarf is about to be overrun. Garen takes the brutal impact of the horde, preparing for the worst. However, a magical water barrier protects him, repelling the goblins surrounding him. The dwarf looks around in amazement, not understanding the source of the power protecting him. The water barrier not only shields him but also forcefully repels the entire goblin horde. Garan wonders in disbelief if his own defense managed such a feat. However, he quickly dismisses that idea. Upon realizing the power isn't coming from him, the entire team turns to discover that the protective magic is emanating from a Desmond enveloped in a green aura. With his eyes closed, Desmond concentrates, channeling his power with unshakable serenity. When he opens them, his gaze reveals a determination and clarity he didn't have before. He's made a decision. The real prize is passing the test with his new companions. He understands that this bond is something he never managed to forge with his old team in an entire year. Taking the lead, he asks them to trust him and follow his orders to secure their victory. Unleashing his power, he declares with absolute conviction that they will all pass the exam together. With renewed confidence, he assures them that if they follow his plan, they will all pass the exam together. He turns to a surprised Dorothy and seriously orders her to prepare her spell. She hesitates, reminding him that she only has one attack left, and using it now would cost her the chance to pass. The memory of Desmond's determined gaze, asking for her trust, makes her reconsider her stance. Gripping her staff tightly, Dorothy makes a decision and agrees to the plan. The mage begins to channel her power while Desmond prepares to give the next orders. He asks Rin and Garan to buy time so that Dorothy can complete her incantation. To Rin's surprise, Desmond assigns her the task of dealing with the enemies approaching from the front. She is stunned to see that she must face the horde alone, of goblins rushing towards them. Desmond looks at her with unshakable seriousness, placing all his trust in her. Instead of hesitating, a fierce and excited smile spreads across Rin's face. Accepting the challenge with euphoria, she charges to the front to intercept the horde. Two goblins lunge at her, ready to crush her with their clubs. With a defiant look, she warns them that she won't let them take another step. Her sword becomes a flash of light, clashing against the first enemy with brutal force. She unleashes a whirlwind of steel, sweeping away all the goblins in her path, with a single move. The warrior pauses, genuinely surprised by the magnitude of her own attack. The goblins are repelled and neutralized, unable to withstand the sword's onslaught. China watches in awe at the result of her feat. Watching the dust settle on the battlefield, she realizes that Desmond's aura has boosted her power, allowing her to achieve the impossible. It's revealed that Desmond used enchantment magic to increase his teammates' strength. Meanwhile, more goblins approach from the rear, threatening to attack Garand. Desmond orders the dwarf to focus solely on defending the team's rear guard. To help him, he uses his magic again, enhancing the dwarf's physical ability and vitality. The dwarf understands his mission, to protect Dorothy at all costs while she prepares her spell. Empowered by Desmond's magic, Garand raises his shield and stops the goblin's advance. The dwarf grits his teeth, resisting the creature's onslaught with all his might. Dorothy watches with concern as Garand becomes an impenetrable wall to protect her. Her concern transforms into a cold determination, upon seeing her teammates sacrifice. With a newfound conviction, Dorothy unleashes her own power, ready to cast her one and only devastating spell. Desmond gives Dorothy a new order, pointing to a passage on the right side of the cave, as she stares into the dark tunnel. He informs her that he will boost her magic, asking her to cast her spell with all her might toward that entrance. Leaving her completely confused, Desmond activates his enchantment, increasing the mage's mental strength and intelligence. Dorothy's water magic is drastically enhanced, increasing its power, precision, and duration. The mage is overwhelmed by the immense amount of energy now flowing through her, feeling like she can't control it. Despite the panic, a sense of euphoria washes over her as she feels such amazing power. To help her channel the energy, Desmond places his hand over hers on the staff, coming up from behind her. He calmly asks her to trust him to guide the spell. The closeness and the overwhelming power leave Dorothy completely flushed and speechless. The mage tries to articulate a word, completely flustered by the situation. Together they unleash a devastating water bullet, powered up and aimed at the dark tunnel. Desmond calmly explains that his plan is to eliminate the enemies in the next room. He reveals that he used his enhanced sense of smell to locate more than 10 goblins in that area. The magic projectile shoots through the passage, surprising the goblins who were on the other side. The creatures barely have time to react to the attack rushing toward them from a distance. The spell hits with an explosive force, ensuring they've surpassed the required number of enemies. Satisfied, Desmond confirms they have successfully defeated the number of goblins needed to pass the test. They both look at the tunnel, now illuminated by a light that reveals the consequences of their attack. However, a drop of cold sweat runs down Desmond's forehead as he realizes a terrible oversight. Desmond realizes that he overboosted Dorothy's spell, creating an uncontrollable force. The unleashed power is so immense that the explosion completely destroys the exam cave. The team suddenly finds themselves outdoors, surrounded by the rubble of what used to be the dungeon. Garand, still floating from the magic, apologizes for getting carried away by the excitement of having new friends. Desmond panics, thinking they'll be disqualified for destroying the test area. Unexpectedly, one of the examiners shows up and nervously tells them not to worry. To everyone's surprise, the man announces that despite the disaster, they've passed the exam. The examiners, sweating profusely, confirm they were the fastest team to finish, leaving Desmond stunned. Despite the destruction, the examiner hands Desmond proof that they've passed the challenge. The man praises Desmond, amazed that a D-rank adventurer possesses such incredible magic. With the certificate of approval in hand, Desmond celebrates with relief while his teammates party euphorically behind him. Their next stop is the imposing fortress that serves as the Adventurers Guild headquarters. Once inside, they're given their member cards, congratulating them for passing the test. A guild employee officially welcomes them to the Knight's Garden, encouraging them to do their best. The group gathers to inspect their new cards, marking the start of their career as an official team. Unable to contain herself, Rin bursts into a jubilant celebration. Infecting the group. Filled with gratitude, she throws herself into a hug with a completely unsuspecting Desmond, giving him all the credit for their success. Their moment of joy is interrupted when they lock eyes with the team that had looked down on them before the exam. The atmosphere in the hall changes drastically, filling with murmurs, as other adventurers watch them with suspicion. With a bead of sweat on his forehead, Desmond senses that the attention they're getting isn't admiration, but something more sinister. The whispers confirm they're the team that passed the exam in record time. Disbelief spreads, since everyone knew them as the worst team in the test. The rumors about Desmond's power are exaggerated to absurd levels, but he doesn't seem to mind. Rin, filled with pride, tells him that everyone on the team should be pleased with their leader's fame. With a playful punch to the chest, she encourages him to accept the recognition he deserves. Garland chimes in, confirming that Desmond's incredible enchantment magic was the key to their victory. Moved by the dwarf's words, Desmond sincerely thanks him for his support. However, the young enchanter grips his staff, preparing to deflect the praise. Humbly, he explains that he's just a support character, and their success was due to teamwork. Turning to look at his teammates, attributing all the glory to the group's trust and effort. Rin looks at him, completely flushed and moved by his humble words. Overcome with emotion, she makes an unexpected marriage proposal, leaving Desmond in shock. However, the celebration comes to an abrupt halt, with a sense of finality. Desmond reminds them that their alliance was only temporary, and they must go their separate ways. The news saddens Dorothy, while Desmond avoids his teammates' gazes. Rin and Garland listen in silence, processing the idea that the team will disband. Dorothy tries to keep her composure, explaining that now they'll each have to find a new team, but her facade cracks, unable to hide her true feelings about the separation. Deeply moved, she declares that she'll never forget this team, confessing it was the best one she's ever been on. Rin interrupts the emotional farewell, showing her guild card and pointing, a crucial detail everyone had overlooked. The rest of the team checks their cards, confirming Rin's revelation in amazement. The guild registered them as an official team, tying their fates together without them even knowing it. The tension of their farewell vanishes, replaced by shared happiness knowing their official team status means they won't be separated. The group introduces themselves all over again, sealing their bond with renewed enthusiasm and overflowing with joy. Rin immediately suggests a celebration for their union. Her idea of a victory party with drinks is instantly seconded by Garand, spreading the excitement to everyone else. Desmond pauses, thinking about telling Cynthia, but sees his new team walking off enthusiastically. He dismisses the idea when he remembers his new rank prevents him from contacting a high-level examiner like her. The thought of not being able to see her again gives him an unexpected pang of loneliness. Leaving the guild behind, the team heads downtown to kick off their well-deserved party. The team arrives at a bustling tavern, the perfect place for their first official celebration. The inside is packed with adventurers, but they quickly find a table to get the party started. With foamy mugs of beer held high, they get ready for the toast that will seal their victory. Everyone clinks their mugs together, celebrating not just their success in the exam but also their unexpected union. Desmond watches his companions with a genuine smile, finally feeling like he's a part of something. Rin returns his gaze with a mischievous smile, enjoying the festive atmosphere and the company. Even Garand and Dorsey, who are usually more serious, get swept up in the joy of the moment. Suddenly, a hooded figure joins their table with a cheeky grin, holding a mug of their own. The mysterious stranger's appearance interrupts the celebration, leaving Desmond and Rin completely bewildered. The team politely tries to explain to the intruder that they're in the middle of a private party. Desmond breaks into a cold sweat when he recognizes a familiar face under the hood, unable to believe his eyes. He confirms the mysterious figure is the examiner Cynthia. The revelation leaves Dorothy and Rin dumbfounded, unable to process the surprise. Even though Cynthia tries to deny it, the entire team recognizes her, causing a commotion at the table. A scandalized Dorothy asks Desmond how he can be so casual with such an important person. The examiner gives them a stern look, clearly uncomfortable with the attention they're drawing. With a resigned sigh, she apologizes for impulsively crashing their party. Cynthia confesses she's known Desmond since childhood and just wanted to congratulate him in person. The charming young man blushes, touched by his childhood friend's gesture. Dorothy panics upon learning about their connection, hastily denying any misunderstanding. Cynthia clarifies that Desmond passed on his own merit, without any favoritism because of their friendship. Dorothy, though surprised, nods quickly, confirming they are aware of their leader's merit. Rin hugs Desmond from behind, joyfully declaring that they're the ones who best know his incredible power. Rin's closeness and the affectionate nickname she uses unleash the jealousy of a completely flustered Cynthia. Dorothy tries to calm the situation down, asking the examiner to relax and drop the formalities. Despite Dorothy's words, Cynthia clings to Desmond's clothes, unable to contain her agitation. The examiner gets close to Desmond, questioning him about Rin with a tense smile. He really knows him. Rin also defends their bond by arguing that risking their lives together gives them an understanding that no one else has. A fierce rivalry breaks out between Cynthia and Rin, who are clashing for the attention of an overwhelmed Desmond. Meanwhile, Garan completely ignores the drama, focused solely on bringing more food for the party. Garan, silverware in hand, smiles happily as he sees the food arrive, oblivious to the tension. Outside the tavern, the night is calm, but inside, the festive atmosphere has been completely ruined. The celebration comes to a halt as the rivalry between the two women intensifies. Inside, Rin takes the initiative and offers Desmond a bite, flirtatiously, trying to win his attention. Cynthia isn't one to be left behind, and she presents Desmond with a spoonful from her own plate, praising its flavor. Caught between them, Desmond can only manage a nervous smile, sweating from the pressure. The young man is frozen as Rin and Cynthia compete to be the first to feed him. The argument escalates into a debate about which food is better for him, increasing Desmond's stress. Dorothy intervenes, pointing out to the two rivals that their behavior is overwhelming their leader. However, her solution is to suggest milk for his fatigue, an idea that doesn't help the situation at all. Garan breaks the tension by praising the pasta, while Desmond can only respond with a forced compliment. The young man politely tries to decline their offers, explaining with a nervous smile that he can eat by himself, but Rin and Cynthia corner him, demanding that he make a decision and choose one of the two. The rivalry intensifies, with Cynthia arguing their childhood friendship and Rin their bond as teammates. The innocent question from Desmond about whether he should choose the food is terribly misunderstood by a blushing Rin. The young woman seems receptive to his supposed audacity, forcing Desmond to remind her they were just talking about food. The misunderstanding spreads to Cynthia, who now also blushes at the supposed audacity of her friend. The examiner blushes violently, secretly wishing she were the object of his boldness. Fed up with the indecisiveness, Cynthia slams her gauntlet on the table, declaring that the situation can't go on like this. The two women decide to settle the dispute once and for all, while Desmond just wants to eat what he feels like. Both women imagine themselves winning, each convinced that her dish is the best for Desmond. Meanwhile, Garan continues his personal feast, piling up a mountain of empty plates beside him. Rin, with inexhaustible energy, orders even more food, determined not to give up on her mission to feed her leader. Suddenly, Garen's tower of plates wobbles dangerously, threatening to fall onto the table. Desmond shouts a warning, seeing the imminent disaster that is about to happen. Rin and Cynthia look at Desmond, expecting him to intervene and save them from the impending chaos. The food from the falling plates splashes onto Cynthia, ruining her moment and her serious expression. Rin isn't spared from the disaster either, getting covered in food with an expression of total disbelief. To both their surprise, Desmond doesn't protect them, but instead lunges to save Garan from the impact. The young leader tries to explain his decision with a nervous smile, facing the death glares from his two admirers. Desmond's justification for saving Garan It only manages to further enrage the two defeated women covered in food. Rin and Cynthia pinpoint Garand as the true culprit for their misfortune. Suddenly, the rivalry transforms as Rin approaches Cynthia with a new proposal. Both women put aside their differences and decide to drown their sorrows in alcohol, forming an unexpected alliance. The celebration that began as a congratulations for Desmond turns into an out-of-control party. Rin, completely wasted, is having the time of her life, with contagious joy and a flushed face. At the end of the night, a sober Garan carries a passed-out Rin, while Dorothy tries to maintain some order. Meanwhile, Desmond is escorting Cynthia, thanking her for joining their chaotic celebration. Dorothy reflects on the night, realizing it's the first time she's truly celebrated with her teammates. Desmond, with a genuine smile, admits he's happy and grateful that Cynthia was there. Cynthia, with a slight blush, confesses she's glad she came to the celebration. The young woman adds that she's happy she gets to be in the same clan as him. Desmond laughs, reminding her that their respective brigades are pretty far apart. With complete confidence, Cynthia assures an embarrassed Desmond that he'll make it to the 1st Brigade soon, though he thinks she's just being nice. She gives him a serious look to confirm she really means it. The examiner smiles and admits that, despite everything, she's glad they're her teammates. The scene cuts to a drunk Rin clinging to Garan, exemplifying just what kind of pleasant teammates they are. Desmond, with a nervous smile, promises he'll make sure Rin behaves better around her superior. Cynthia admits that while the party with everyone was fun, she has something else in mind. With an intense look, she reveals her true desire, to celebrate alone with him. Desmond is speechless at her proposal, but Cynthia quickly backtracks, pretending she didn't say anything. With a radiant smile under the moonlight, she tells him that starting tomorrow, she'll be counting on him. Immediately, she's overcome with embarrassment and, blushing, can barely say Desmond's name. The young man, blushing just as hard, feels overwhelmed but flattered by his friend's confession. Desmond reciprocates, agreeing that he's counting on her too, as the night envelops them. The next morning, a new day dawns in the city, marking the beginning of a new chapter. Their first destination is an alchemy shop, a key location for their preparations. The shop's interior is packed with potions of every color, a collection that impresses the team. Dorothy lists the essential supplies they need, from healing potions to antidotes. They get ready with enthusiasm, determined to be prepared for their first official mission as a team. Desmond interrupts the shopping with a sudden question about a logistical detail. The young man innocently asks if they should split the cost of the supplies between them. Dorothy explains with a smile that the clan will cover all the costs, much to Desmond's surprise. He recalls with some bitterness his time in Espada, where he had to pay for everything out of his own pocket. The clan's generosity motivates him, and he feels the weight of the expectations on his shoulders. After a successful shopping trip, the team leaves the store, loaded up with potions and ready for action. Once they're out on the street, Desmond can't help but think about his former companion, Adele, and what he might be up to. Their mission takes them to the northern district of Bristol, to the entrance of an ominous dungeon. It is the C-rank dungeon, Greenbites, a massive pit that goes deep into the earth. Meanwhile, deep inside, an exhausted Adele seems to be fighting for his life. His female companion watches him with an expression of disbelief and concern. His other companion, the party's tank, is also sweating under the pressure, unable to hold back the enemies. A horde of goblins surrounds them, far more ferocious than they should be. Adele, covered in sweat and scratches, curses his helplessness in this situation. The young man wonders why his supposedly experienced party is being so easily overwhelmed. He gets frustrated, seeing that they can't defeat what should be simple goblins. One of the creatures leaps at him, ready to land a decisive blow. With a desperate effort, Adele manages to block the attack with his sword. However, the force of the impact overwhelms him and sends him flying violently through the air. His companions shout his name, watching in horror as their leader is defeated. The red-headed mage finds herself cornered by the goblins, paralyzed with fear. Desperate, she demands the tank protect her, reminding him of his duty as the party's shield. Chaos breaks out as the party argues, blaming each other for their lack of coordination. The mage reveals she can't use her magic, while Adele watches the argument from the ground, helpless. With a look full of frustration, Adele curses his situation and his party's incompetence. Taking control, the young man orders an immediate retreat using a teleportation scroll. Now, safe outside the dungeon, the party lies on the ground, completely exhausted from the escape. Adele, furious, can't believe a party of his caliber was defeated by the weakest monsters. The tank suggests they went into the wrong dungeon, but the healer corrects him with cold logic. The young woman proposes that maybe they're just feeling off, though her expression suggests she suspects something more. The healer addresses her party, questioning if the rumors about their strength were an exaggeration. Adele explodes with anger, blaming the young woman for the failure of her buff magic and their subsequent defeat. The healer reacts with disbelief and anger at her leader's accusation. She defends herself, throwing the blame back and pointing out the uselessness for the rest of the party during the fight. The young woman specifies that the tank was unable to hold back the enemies, exposing his weakness. She continues her critique, mentioning that the mage barely used basic spells before being taken out of the fight. With disdain, she reminds Adele that he was easily defeated by a single goblin. The healer openly mocks them, declaring that it's pathetic that the famous party sword is so weak. The young woman's words strike Adele's pride, who grits his teeth with uncontrollable rage. Losing control, Adele grabs her by the neck, threatening her and firing her from the party on the spot. The healer struggles to break free, asking him with difficulty to stop. Adele, consumed by rage, completely ignores her, not letting go. With a swift movement of her staff, the young woman hits him and sends him flying through the air. The party leader crashes violently to the ground, kicking up dirt and rocks, stunned and humiliated. Adel lifts his head, unable to believe he was taken down so easily. The other two team members watch the confrontation, frozen in surprise. The healer looks at him with a flirty smile, pretending not to understand his anger. She mocks him, criticizing him for not even taking a defensive stance. With a look of superiority, the young woman sentences him with a single word: weak. The final humiliation makes Adel's anger explode, and his eyes glow with uncontrollable fury. The healer informs him that he doesn't need to fire her, as she quits first with disdain. She declares that she refuses to work with such a useless group and forbids them from ever looking for her again. The young woman walks away indifferently, leaving a humiliated Adel and his stunned teammates behind. Adele grinds his teeth, silently cursing the situation and his own powerlessness. His frustration explodes as he punches the ground, while his mind fills with thoughts about enchanters. With overflowing rage, he comes to the bitter conclusion that all enchanters are a nuisance. Meanwhile, the story returns to Desmond, who is standing in front of the imposing Night Clan headquarters. The young man's eyes sparkle with excitement at the thought of starting his first official mission. Full of determination, he promises himself that his first job with the clan will be a resounding success. The young man dreams of climbing the clan's hierarchy, hoping to one day join the 1st Brigade, like Cynthia. Desmond meets up with his new team, the 5th Brigade, all ready for their first mission. The young man wonders what their task will be, while the elf mage assumes it will be a simple dungeon exploration. The blonde swordswoman, full of confidence, suggests finishing the mission quickly, but the mage warns her not to get cocky. Desmond smiles, genuinely happy and excited to be working with his new and lively team. With excitement in the air, the group prepares to enter the meeting room and receive their assignment. However, the scene changes abruptly, showing two men with grim and tense expressions. Elsewhere in the clan, a group of adventurers argues heatedly with faces full of anger and frustration. Back in the main hall, a crowd of clan members has gathered, creating an atmosphere of chaos and disorder. Desmond and his teammates are stunned, not understanding the sudden commotion that has taken over the place. The other adventurers mutter among themselves, and Desmond's team realizes that something very strange is happening in the clan. The swordswoman celebrates, believing the whispers are in admiration of her kill record. However, another adventurer clarifies that people are pointing at him for getting into the clan through his connections. The revelation leaves Desmond and his team completely bewildered. A group of clan members glares at them with contempt, annoyed by the new team's supposed arrogance. The rumors spread, pointing out Desmond as Cynthia's childhood friend. The elf mage isn't spared either, as it's rumored that she also has a protector within the clan. Envy turns to anger, and other adventurers accuse them openly of cheating and favoritism. The enraged crowd surrounds Desmond's team, demanding they leave and calling them pathetic. Desmond tries to calm things down, denying the accusations and assuring them it's all a misunderstanding. Suddenly, an authoritative voice from a balcony above orders the crowd to stop. The crowd turns towards the balcony with expressions of surprise and annoyance. All the clan members look up, silenced by the sudden intervention. Desmond and his team, still on edge, watch the figure who has stopped the chaos. A disheveled-looking man addresses the crowd, announcing the presence of the 5th Brigade. The team is stunned to discover that this man is Brant, their new captain. Desmond can't believe his eyes, refusing to accept that this is their leader. To their horror, they realize that their captain is completely drunk in the middle of the hall. The vice-captain tries to control Brant, who is teetering dangerously over the railing. Despite his condition, the captain pulls himself together just enough to announce the day's mission. Their first assignment will be to explore the dangerous and frozen Imberal Ice Cave. Brant reveals that the main objective is to retrieve the Gem of Wisdom, a rare item from the depths of the cave. The crowd murmurs in disbelief, as they know the gem is a B-rank item, far too dangerous for them. One adventurer protests, reminding everyone that the ice cave is a high-difficulty dungeon they can't take lightly. Another clan member, furious, demands an explanation, while Desmond watches the scene with growing concern. Desmond analyzes the situation, concluding that sending the 5th Brigade, made up of D-rank adventurers, into a B-rank dungeon is a death sentence. Panic grips the adventurers, who imagine themselves being annihilated by the first trap or monster they encounter. Despite his multiplication magic, Desmond doubts their chances and looks at his captain nervously. Brant, with an enigmatic smile, tells them that this is the clan's policy, and that they must understand what it means to be a chevalier. His cryptic words leave Desmond and the others completely confused, not understanding what he's referring to. The imposing image of the clan headquarters highlights the sheer scale of the organization, making the captain's words resonate even more strongly. Desmond and the other adventurers come to the terrible conclusion that the clan considers them disposable pawns. From the balcony, Captain Brant, completely unconcerned, tells them to stop making such a fuss. With a malicious grin, the captain prepares to add more fuel to the fire. Brant coldly confirms their worst fears, admitting that they are simply replacements. The revelation unleashes the fury of the crowd, who can't believe their leader's shameless confession. Desmond is in shock, processing the cruel reality of such a large organization. The young man refuses to accept that the Cynthia clan, which he could belong to for his entire life, is so corrupt. The tension mounts as the adventurers feel humiliated and prepare to confront their captain. Despite the anger all around him, Desmond can only wish for the situation not to get any worse. Brant then reveals his plan, explaining that they have gathered 6 teams from the 5th Brigade for a brute force mission. A chart details the strategy. Use the overwhelming number of members from the 5th Brigade as cannon fodder. The captain orders them to blindly obey the lead team that will be assigned. Treating them with absolute contempt, the humiliation is palpable, and the adventurers can barely contain their anger at the way they're being treated. Just as Desmond is thinking he wouldn't want to be the leader in this situation, the captain announces that team number 55 will take command. The captain names Desmond's team, making them the center of attention. Immediately, the gazes of the other teams are fixed on them, filled with resentment and envy. The decision only fuels suspicions of favoritism, and the crowd judges them harshly. From the balcony, Captain Brand, oblivious to the tension, casually greets them while continuing to drink. Suddenly, everyone's attention shifts to a pair of imposing double doors that are about to open. Desmond, now the leader of the suicide mission, forces a smile as panic takes hold of him and his team. After an abrupt scene change, the story moves away from the clan's headquarters. The team arrives at the entrance of the Mezbel Ice Cave, a place as imposing as it is dangerous. Reviewing the details, they confirm they are facing a B-rank dungeon, a high-difficulty mission. As soon as they set foot inside, the temperature drops sharply, living up to its icy name. The completely frozen ground reminds them of the treacherous nature of the terrain they are treading. Desmond and the elf mage marvel at the beauty of the dungeon that seems to expand before their eyes. They discover that, despite its natural appearance, the cave is an artificial structure created by an ancient civilization. The swordswoman, with a sly smile, reminds everyone to stay alert for any enemies. The young woman realizes she doesn't feel cold despite the mist from her breath. To his companion's surprise, Desmond proudly reveals that he has cast a cold resistance spell on the entire team. Desmond's companions are surprised to learn that the spell will protect them from the cold and allow them to move freely. He confidently explains that, although the spell is temporary, it will be enough for the entire dungeon exploration. The swordswoman, impressed, touches Desmond's arm, praising his incredible magical ability. She clings to him, jokingly saying she wants him as her personal heater because of how much she hates the cold. Desmond, a bit nervous, reminds her that they can't let their guard down, since a single mistake could cost them their lives. Suddenly, another adventurer in spiked boots approaches them with a hostile expression. Without warning, the man kicks Desmond in the back, making him stumble violently. Desmond falls face first onto the ice while his companion screams his name in horror. The swordswoman furiously turns to confront the attacker, demanding an explanation for his attack. The adventurer, full of frustration, accuses them of wasting time instead of taking the mission seriously. The attacker expresses his contempt for teams that, according to him, get ahead thanks to their connections. The swordswoman, furious, denies the accusations flatly, but the man doesn't back down. Desmond gets up with the mark of the kick on his back, while the other man accuses him of using his connections to become the leader. The crowd joins in on the accusations, shouting that they won't entrust their lives to a team of imposters. While Desmond panickedly tries to calm the situation down, his companion is visibly annoyed by the commotion. The swordswoman, fed up with the situation, boldly declares she will show them her true power, leaving Desmond stunned. With defiant confidence, she challenges everyone to test her so they can see her skills firsthand. The aggressor glares at her with intense fury, tacitly accepting the challenge. The man prepares for the confrontation as his companions cheer him on, and Desmond cowers in fear. The crowd parts, creating a makeshift arena and shouting for Desmond's team to be kicked out. Desmond tries to reason with the mob, pleading for them to cooperate and remember they are allies. The crowd, filled with rage, ignores his words and screams at him with overwhelming hatred. With a defiant smirk, the swordswoman lunges forward, determined to settle this her own way. Suddenly, Desmond panics as he feels something is terribly wrong with his enchantment. The situation spirals out of control as the aggressors mock the team's loyalty, and while surrounding them, without a word, a man punches Desmond in the face, accusing him of using his connections. His face bruised, the young man denies the accusations, insisting they have done nothing wrong. His defense is useless and he gets a brutal kick, while they shout that all guilty people say the same thing. Several adventurers pounce on him, pinning him to the ground to continue the attack. The swordswoman finally intervenes, furiously blocking a blow to protect her leader. With unleashed fury, the swordswoman yells at the aggressor that he has messed with the wrong team. Without hesitation, she delivers a devastating kick straight to his face. The man barely flinches, taking the blow with a superhuman resistance that leaves her stunned. To her surprise, the kick does no damage, and the swordswoman realizes her opponent is incredibly tough. Impressed by his durability, she praises him with a smile, acknowledging that he is no ordinary foe. The crowd, far from calming down, becomes even more enraged, convinced they are weak and advancing due to favoritism. Suddenly, the ground freezes over, and one of the adventurers' feet gets trapped in magical ice. Taking advantage of the chaos, several men grab the swordswoman, forcefully restraining her. The elf mage is also cornered and captured by the other adventurers amidst the confusion. A firm footstep echoes on the ice, signaling the arrival of someone who is about to change the tide of the fight. Desmond realizes the enchantment he cast is about to cause a catastrophe. The rest of the adventurers also sense the imminent danger and stop dead in their tracks, alarmed. With his hand on the ice, the young man understands that his own magic has interacted with the dungeon. Despite the strange situation, the aggressor prepares to continue the attack against Desmond. The young woman with glasses screams desperately, trying to warn everyone about the threat looming over them amidst the chaos. The crowd ignores the pleas and keeps Desmond's team pinned down. The aggressors, with an air of superiority, demand that the team give up to have their lives spared. The elf mage, while struggling, notices that something strange is happening with the cave floor. She discovers with horror that the frozen ground is actually a deadly trap that is about to be triggered. The swordswoman and her companions confirm that the commotion was the trigger for the trap. The aggressors are left dumbfounded, not understanding the warning about the trap they just heard. Suddenly, the icy floor cracks beneath their feet, heralding the imminent disaster. The floor completely collapses, sending all the plies of Legrayfield adventurers into a free fall towards a frozen abyss. Panic grips the adventurers' faces as they plummet uncontrollably into the unknown. The swordswoman and her companion slide down an icy slope, desperately struggling to keep from falling. The elf mage and those holding onto her also lose their balance, dragged down by the collapsing cave. Desmond and the others scream in disbelief, unable to accept the grim reality of the situation. It's absolute chaos as everyone plummets into the void, screaming in terror at the floor that has disappeared. From Desmond's perspective, it's revealed that the bottom is covered with sharp stakes of ice, a deadly trap. With faces of sheer terror, they all watch their fatal destiny approach as they fall directly onto the lethal ice spikes. The sharp stakes of ice gleam, promising a brutal end for everyone falling. From the edge, the few who were spared watch their comrades fall helplessly. The scene is devastating, as almost all the adventurers have perished in the death trap. The survivors stare in horror, realizing they just witnessed a total annihilation. Desmond's party, which also managed to avoid the fall, watches the massacre in disbelief. Just before impact, a hand enveloped in a green aura miraculously halts their fall. Everyone present, both in the chasm and on the ledges, are left stunned by the unexpected event. Desmond and his main attacker look down, confused by the strange magic that has intervened. The elf mage and the dwarf don't understand what's happening either, watching the scene in astonishment, enveloped in a protective light. The falling adventurers realize with relief that they've been saved. One adventurer notices that not only is he unharmed, but the ice spikes shattered upon contact with them. All the adventurers who fell celebrate euphorically, discovering they're safe in the middle of the death trap. Desmond's main attacker, though relieved, can't hide his confusion at the miraculous rescue. His expression shifts to suspicion as his gaze fixes on the source of their salvation. In the distance, he spots Desmond, lying on the icy ground, his staff emitting a brilliant green aura. The young mage is clearly exhausted and wounded, but he's the source of the power that has saved them all. The attacker and his partner are left speechless, unable to believe that the kid they were just attacking is the one who rescued them. The rest of the saved adventurers also look up, slowly processing the unbelievable truth. With one last effort, Desmond leans on his staff. The strain from the spell on his face shows that he managed to cast a body enhancement enchantment on everyone just in time, but he warns that its effect is temporary and that they must escape before more traps appear. The attacker, now taking the lead, orders everyone to use a rope to get out of the chasm immediately. The adventurers, still dazed at the bottom, begin to organize their escape. Once safe on the ledge, the man confirms that everyone managed to escape the trap. A firm step onto the ice marks the end of the perilous ascent for one of the survivors. His companions rush to help Desmond, who collapses from mana exhaustion. The attacker and his partner realize that Desmond was casting the spell while they were attacking him. A flashback reveals that the young man, the mage, was the first one to detect the death trap. They realize that despite the blows, his only goal was to save them all. The attacker looks at Desmond in a new light, understanding that his intention was always to protect them. The other adventurers watch the scene, processing the magnitude of their terrible mistake. Guilt and regret are reflected on the faces of those who had previously attacked him. The leader of the aggressors looks at him with a mix of shame and a new determination. He remembers the young man's words, who considered them comrades even during the attack. With a resolute expression, the man makes a decision to amend his mistake. As a gesture of peace, he offers Desmond potions to recover his strength. Meanwhile, the swordswoman apologizes to her team for the unnecessary waste of resources. She blames herself for not listening to Desmond's warnings from the beginning. Desmond looks at her with understanding, holding no grudge for what happened. Suddenly, all the adventurers rush towards them, offering them items as compensation. Desmond is surprised to see the overwhelming amount of recovery items they're offering him. The leader of the aggressors formally apologizes, admitting he got carried away by the situation. With a newfound expression of respect, he asks Desmond to help them in the mission as comrades. Desmond's team watches the sudden change in attitude, stunned, as he accepts the alliance. Even the other attackers apologize with a familiarity that makes the young mage a little uncomfortable. In the distance, the rest of the adventurers celebrate the new camaraderie that has emerged from the disaster. A mysterious female figure watches the scene from a distance with an interested smile. The woman recognizes the group and, noticing their potential, decides she wants to recruit one of them. However, the path ahead reveals a new and gigantic frozen abyss, much more imposing than the last one. The adventurers, now united, doubt their ability to clear a B-rank dungeon, questioning their next move. Desmond reflects, recognizing the true danger of the dungeon. The former aggressor proposes a simple plan: avoid enemies and traps to survive. Desmond reveals his master strategy: destroy the dungeon's core. He explains that by destroying the core, the dungeon will weaken, and only weak monsters will appear. The leader of the aggressors wonders if they'll have to search the entire dungeon for the core. Desmond dismisses that idea, calling it inefficient and warning that it would turn into a competition. He reveals they aren't the only group exploring the dungeon, which complicates the search. The man becomes worried, as he knows other groups could steal the treasure or destroy the core before they do. With a determined expression, Desmond proposes a bold solution: split into groups. He details his plan. His team will go straight for the core, while the others search for treasure and watch the surroundings. His team's objective is clear: get the Gem of Wisdom as quickly as possible. Desmond assures them that with his enchantment spell of multiplication, his small group will be enough for the task. He deduces that the large number of adventurers was summoned intentionally to split up, following a plan from the clan leader. However, the other adventurers reveal a harsh truth: they believe they are just disposable and replaceable pawns. Desmond refuses to believe that Cynthia's clan, the Knight's Garden, would be so ruthless with its members. Despite their doubts, all the adventurers rally with renewed vigor, ready to give it their all on the mission. Desmond maintains a serious expression, processing the difficult situation while his partner cheers him on from behind. Even their former attackers now shout with determination, fully committed to the new strategy. Suddenly, a magical snowflake materializes on the ceiling of the icy hallway. Catching their attention, the symbol seems to guide them down the ice corridor and towards a mysterious door at the end of the path. The magical snowflake floats in the air, indicating the way forward. Desmond, now the leader of his group, prepares to guide his team through the dungeon. He warns his partner about a dangerous path, suggesting a safer alternative route. He reminds everyone to stay alert for lurking traps and enemies. The group's dwarf, Garand, strikes up a conversation with a thoughtful Desmond. Garand expresses his relief at having resolved their differences with the other adventurers. Desmond smiles, agreeing with his companion and happy about the new alliance. He recalls the tough times when his group was hated and unfairly accused of cheating. However, he now realizes that his new comrades are much kinder than he imagined. Surrounded by friends, Desmond understands that true happiness lies in camaraderie. Desmond insists that his plan cannot fail, as the consequences would be disastrous. He envisions the terrible fate that awaits them if they don't destroy the core. All the groups will be eliminated one by one. Taking responsibility, he apologizes for making such a risky decision, and asks his comrades to trust him. His face shows deep determination as he confesses that his greatest wish is to prevent the death of his comrades. At his honesty, the swordswoman bursts into a cheerful laugh, accepting the proposal without the slightest hesitation. With a playful gesture, the swordswoman encourages him and teases his shyness, strengthening the team's bond. Unexpectedly, a purple-haired woman interrupts the conversation, alluding to the importance of their task. Surprised, Desmond and his partner turn to face the person who just spoke. The purple-haired woman, revealing herself as the leader of another team, she proposes joining forces for the mission. Totally baffled, Desmond doesn't recognize the new group while his former attacker watches them suspiciously. The purple-haired woman introduces herself and her companions as Team Number 24. With a flirtatious smile, she reveals her name is Meryl. One of her companions, a rough-looking man, introduces himself as Gant. The next member, a smug-looking young man, says his name is Senary. The last of the group, a shy boy with his hair covering his eyes, introduces himself as Jean. Desmond, confused by the offer, asks her to clarify her intentions, to which she responds firmly. Meryl argues that it would be safer for everyone if their groups advanced together through the dangerous dungeon. Furthermore, she admits she was impressed by Desmond's amazing enchantment magic, leaving him stunned. In a very forward manner, Meryl gets close and hugs a blushing Desmond, confessing that she has taken a great interest in him. Bluntly, she proposes that Desmond abandon his current team and join hers, sparking outrage among his companions. The swordswoman explodes with rage, accusing Meryl of trying to steal their most valuable member. Meryl ignores her, maintaining a cold and calculating gaze, determined to get what she wants. The former aggressor finally understands why Desmond's team was so despised despite their obvious power. She whispers to a dizzy Desmond that his power is the only reason his team, which she considers weak, has survived. The swordswoman is enraged at being called weak, while her teammates worry about Desmond's situation. With a manipulative smile, Meryl suggests that if they truly care about him, they should let him go with a stronger team. Meryl's words hit the team hard, leaving them speechless and visibly affected by the cruel logic of her argument. The elf mage clenches her fist tightly, containing her rage at Meryl's insolent proposal. Desmond, regaining his composure, tries to refute Meryl, insisting that his team is not what she thinks. With a look full of determination, Desmond prepares to defend the honor and unity of his comrades. The swordswoman explodes, yelling at Meryl not to get all high and mighty, and that she won't hand over Desmond. Meryl looks down on her, asserting that even though they are the same rank, their power levels are completely different. Desmond and his companion are baffled by the insult, comically wondering what kind of trash she's talking about. Gant, Meryl's teammate, explains to a confused Desmond that their leader is incredibly stubborn when she sets her mind to something. Desmond's teammates joke about his sudden popularity, while he still doesn't understand what's happening. The argument escalates when Meryl and the swordswoman face off, trading insults about their looks. Exhausted by the conflict, Desmond mentally decides to check out of the dispute, reflecting on the complications of friendship. Both women corner him, demanding he make an immediate decision about which team he will join. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Desmond comically tries to hide behind a pillar of ice. With a forced smile, he tries to calm things down, explaining that it's not about having to choose between them. Suddenly, a deafening roar interrupts the dispute, as the ice around them begins to crack. Alerted, the three of them look up, wondering about the source of the mysterious sound. Impulsively, the swordswoman runs towards the noise, while a terrified Desmond warns her of the danger. Without hesitation, her teammates decide to follow her, leaving Desmond and the other team behind. Meryl takes advantage of the distraction, grabbing Desmond to stop him from following his team. With an intense gaze, Meryl presses her argument, questioning his loyalty to a weaker team. Desmond watches her in silence, processing her words with an unreadable expression. Finally, Desmond breaks the silence and refutes her logic, to the surprise of Meryl and her teammate. With a smile full of conviction, he reveals that their supposed weakness is actually their greatest strength. Desmond's answer leaves Meryl, utterly baffled. unable to understand his reasoning. Desmond realizes that his logic has left Meryl completely perplexed. The former aggressor finally understands the cruel politics of the garden. Low-ranked teams are just disposable pawns. Suddenly, a panicked voice calls out to Desmond, alerting him to a new problem on the horizon. Taking the lead, Desmond announces that their two teams will handle the destruction of the core. The two groups head down a frozen hallway, gearing up for the dangerous task ahead. As they advance, a weird distortion in the air suggests something anomalous is happening. The temperature plummets, freezing even the potions they are carrying and catching everyone by surprise. Panic erupts when a potion freezes solid and shatters, proving just how lethally cold the environment is. The swordswoman yells for Desmond to get closer, pointing out an alarming discovery up ahead in the distance. Sharp, menacing silhouettes emerge from the fog, confirming the presence of imminent danger. The ice twists and molds itself, forming a monstrous figure. A colossal torso emerges from the frost, adorned with pure ice crystals. The creature reveals itself completely, an imposing ice golem with a single glowing eye. Desmond's team is paralyzed with terror, as they identify the beast as an ice golem. Meryl and Gan realize this is no ordinary monster, but the final boss of the dungeon. To make matters worse, an ice wolf appears, growling defiantly at the colossus. The golem's eye locks onto its target with cold, relentless determination, ignoring the adventurers. The golem gathers its power, and radiating an icy light, with surprising speed, the golem unleashes a devastating blow, crushing the ice wolf without mercy. The smaller creature is instantly annihilated, demonstrating the overwhelming power of the dungeon boss. Both teams turn completely pale, their faces showing pure terror at the golem's display of strength. The group silently watches the scene, feeling tiny in the face of the power they just witnessed. Panic grips the team as they consider retreating, until the swordswoman notices a crucial detail. She points out that behind the monster is the dungeon core, their final objective. The revelation hits them. To win, they must face the beast guarding the core, a task that seems impossible. The swordswoman, however, tries to boost her companions' morale with unexpected confidence. With a smile, she assures them that with Desmond's enchantments, they can defeat the boss in a single hit. Desmond, feeling the pressure, activates his appraisal skill and his eye glows with an intense blue light. His gaze focuses on the ice golem, analyzing its every attribute to find a weakness. The results of the appraisal leave him stunned, as it reveals the monster's insane stats, especially its ridiculously high vitality. Desmond calmly admits that while his magic multiplies stats, it has a crucial limitation. The harsh reality of the situation hits the group like an icy blow. His companions ask if his magic is enough, but Desmond regretfully confirms their worst fears. He explains that their base stats are just too low, leaving his team embarrassed and speechless. Despair starts to set in, as they realize the mission could be a total failure. However, Desmond refuses to give up. His expression changes to one of intense determination. He proposes a new plan. They do not need to defeat the golem, they just need to tank its attacks. His strategy is to use his magic to buff everyone's vitality, turning them into a defensive wall. This way, they can just ignore the boss's attacks and focus solely on destroying the core. In his mind, he pictures the swordswoman, empowered by his magic, effortlessly shattering the golem's crystals. Gant recalls the enchantment that saved them from the fall, admitting it was impressive. However, he doubts that same magic can withstand the devastating attacks, the boss's attacks. Desmond tries to calm his nervous teammates, but the tension is palpable. With a smile, he assures them that he's checked their stats and that their defense is their strong suit. Suddenly, Desmond's expression changes as he notices something unexpected in the distance. The swordswoman Rin has rushed ahead of the group, impatiently waiting for the signal. Without warning, Rin charges into battle, demanding that Desmond use his buff magic. The rest of the team panics, shouting at her not to rush ahead before the spell is ready. Meryl watches the swordswoman's recklessness, breaking out in a cold sweat at her actions. Although she acknowledges the power of Desmond's magic, Meryl can't comprehend Rin's blind faith in charging in like that. Despite the deadly risk, Rin lunges at the golem, determined to land the first blow. The monster's eye twitches, fixing its attention on the tiny figure who dares to challenge it. Panic takes hold of the group as they see the golem has locked onto its target, demanding that Desmond cast the spell. With an expression of utmost concentration, Desmond prepares to unleash his buff magic. However, at the last second, his look reveals that something is not going according to plan. Confusion washes over him when his buff magic simply won't respond to his will. He discovers the cause of the problem. The extreme cold has completely frozen the tip of his staff. A choked gasp escapes him as he realizes that his staff, his only source of power, is useless. In an instant, he remembers the potion incident and realizes his staff must have accidentally touched a wall. Despair washes over him as he confirms that, without his functioning staff, he is completely unable to cast the spell. Meryl and Gant are stunned to hear Desmond's terrible news. Meanwhile, the golem's eye glows brightly, preparing to attack. The ice beast unleashes a barrage of sharp icicles at the defenseless Rin. Terror fills the swordswoman's face as she sees death approaching. Rin finds herself completely surrounded by the icy attack and with no possible escape. Despite the fear, the young woman grits her teeth, bracing for the inevitable impact. Her teammates watch in horror, convinced she won't be able to dodge the fatal blow. At the last second, the fighter from the other team leaps in and shoves Rin out of the way. Her rescuer demands that a stunned Rin get up, as the danger isn't over. The golem's eye cracks with fury, fixing its new yellow gaze on the two adventurers. The enraged golem unleashes another icicle attack, trapping the two warriors in the middle of the chaos. Their companions watch helplessly, shouting for them to run for their lives. Both of them get to their feet, facing the monster together as it prepares to attack again. The ice beast gathers power, making the crystals on its body glow with a menacing light. Rin notices with surprise that her rescuer didn't escape the rescue unscathed. A sharp shard of ice is embedded deep in her leg armor. The fighter admits her mistake, realizing that her injury has left her vulnerable. Unexpectedly, Rin grips her firmly, refusing to leave her behind with a newfound determination. Rin helps the wounded fighter stay on her feet, despite being urged to flee. Rin refuses to abandon the person who just saved her life. Rin warns her companion that if she gives up, they will both fall to the impending attack. Just in time, a huge wall of ice rises out of nowhere, blocking the deadly barrage of icicles. Both warriors turn around, completely stunned, as they see the protective shield that has saved them. They discover it was Gant, the dwarf from the other team, who conjured the wall to protect them. With a stern expression, Gant orders them to retreat, warning them that he won't be able to help them again. However, the effort leaves him, completely exhausted, and he collapses on the ground. To the girls' surprise, the fighter panics upon seeing another attack approaching, and their savior is out of commission. Terror grips the group, as they brace themselves for a new wave of attacks from the golem. Unexpectedly, a burst of flame intercepts the ice projectiles, melting them in mid-air. Rin and the fighter watch in confusion at the appearance of fire magic in the middle of the ice cave. Rin turns in surprise to discover that it was Meryl who cast the fire spell. However, the elf mage confesses that she has used up all her mana and can no longer cast spells. Panic seizes the other team, who now must not only survive but also rescue more of their comrades. A desperate Desmond tries to give orders, but the chaos and indecision completely paralyze him. His hand trembles over his useless staff as his mind repeats the same unanswered question over and over again. Guilt consumes him as he accepts that this entire disastrous situation is his fault. He bitterly recalls his own arrogance, believing his plan and his enhancement magic would be foolproof. A tear escapes from his eye as he thinks that his mistake will cost all of his teammates their lives. The cruel words of his former companions echo in his mind, calling him useless and reminding him of his past failures. Completely broken, Desmond gives in to despair, convinced that he truly can't do anything to save them. Wallowing in self-pity, Desmond convinces himself that he is nothing but a useless burden to the team. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is paralyzed with panic, unsure whether to flee or fight. Even Rin, trapped on the front lines, smiles with resignation, accepting that this is her end. Suddenly, a hand grabs Desmond by the collar, snapping him out of his self-pity. It's the warrior from his team, confronting him furiously, fed up with his defeatist attitude. His face flushed with anger, the warrior screams that he's useless. Desmond flinches, surprised by his teammate's harsh rebuke. The warrior accuses him of only knowing how to apologize and assuming everyone looks down on him. The harsh truths leave Desmond speechless, with tears welling up in his eyes. Finally, the warrior calls him out for being the only one not doing anything, even suggesting he's been drinking. The warrior vehemently defends himself, clarifying that the bottle is a tool for the mission and, in front of a stunned Desmond, pours the liquid onto the frozen staff, trying to retrieve it. Desmond watches in complete disbelief, unable to comprehend his companion's strange strategy. The warrior reveals his plan, explaining that alcohol doesn't freeze and can melt the ice. It is revealed that the warrior Sonari's knowledge stems from the antifreeze properties of alcohol. Sonari admits that alcohol alone has a limited effect, similar to warm water, but by combining it with his body heat, he manages to free the staff right before Desmond's astonished eyes. Desmond's despair turns into amazement as he sees his staff, free and shining. Meanwhile, the ice wall that was protecting them begins to crack dangerously. The barrier crumbles and a new shower of icy projectiles heads toward the adventurers. The group panics as they are left completely exposed to the impending ice shower. Sonari smiles with resignation, accepting that they can't keep dodging the attacks forever. The female warrior demands that he save her, but he replies with humor that he'd rather be the one being rescued. Meanwhile, the ice golem prepares to launch its ultimate attack, confirming their worst fears. The beast unleashes an overwhelming wave of power, sealing the adventurers' fate as they watch helplessly. The group braces for the final impact, but unexpectedly, a greenish aura envelops them, leaving them unharmed and completely confused. Katrin stares at the magic shield in amazement, unable to believe they've been saved. They discover that the protective barrier is coming from Desmond, who now stands tall with his staff in hand. Desmond announces his comeback, revealing that he used his physical enhancement magic to protect everyone. Despite his heroic intervention, the cold of the cave has given him a bit of frostbite on his nose. His companions, now protected by his magic, cheer for him with renewed confidence and relief. The orb on his staff radiates a powerful green light, the source of his incredible magic. The mage stands with renewed confidence, ready to prove his true worth as a leader. His gaze is now sharp and full of determination, ready to face the enemy without hesitation. Even the monstrous golem seems surprised, its crystal eye reflecting the protective barrier. He firmly grips his staff, preparing to coordinate his team for a decisive assault. Imbued with his power, the entire team prepares to charge into battle under his command. The mage strikes the ground with his staff, unleashing a wave of energy that spreads across the battlefield. With a shout full of conviction, he gives the signal to begin the final assault against the golem. Desmond's magic enhances the female warrior's vitality and strength, who feels the power coursing through her body. The rest of the combatants receive a boost to their mana recovery, getting ready for action. Even the elf mage feels her mental strength amplified, observing the spell's range with surprise. Desmond himself also benefits from his own magic, instantly healing the frostbite on her nose. Despite the buffs, the ice golem doesn't stop, and launches a new barrage of sharp crystals. However, thanks to Desmond's power, the team dodges the projectiles with superhuman agility. The purple-haired warrior taunts the monster while effortlessly weaving through the attacks. Rin also glides between the crystals with a smile, finding the challenge surprisingly easy. Desmond interrupts their euphoria to remind them not to face the dungeon boss head-on. He points out their real objective, the dungeon core, glowing brightly behind the ice colossus. Desmond slams his staff on the ground, declaring that victory lies in destroying the core. Rin, imbued with power, accepts the new strategy without a moment's hesitation. With a fierce smile, the warrior charges forward, determined to deliver the finishing blow. However, the ice golem reacts instantly to intercept her bold advance. The elf mage shouts a desperate warning upon seeing her comrade in imminent danger. Rin realizes too late that the monster has anticipated her move, barely managing to deflect the golem's attack, getting knocked back by the force of the impact. The mage rushes to her side to make sure she's okay, while Rin recovers from the shock. Saneri and the other warrior watch the failed offensive, preparing to try again. The warrior reminds them not to lose sight of the main objective, the glowing dungeon core. The dungeon core begins to sink into the ice, threatening to disappear. Desmond realizes with frustration that the golem is trying to hide its weak spot. If the core becomes fully submerged, they will lose their only chance to win the battle. Saneri and Desmond panic, not knowing how to react to the monster's new tactic. However, a look of determination crosses Desmond's face as he comes up with a new plan. The mage proposes a bold distraction tactic to take the enemy by surprise. His strategy is for the team to draw the boss's attention, while one of them destroys the core. Rin volunteers for the final assault, confident that she is the fastest in the group. With the core about to disappear, the team prepares for their one last attempt, driven by urgency. Everyone launches into the attack with all their might. To execute the plan, the team spreads out to provoke the golem, drawing its attention with gestures and shouts. The ice beast falls for the trap, turning its massive body toward the decoys. Saneri and the dwarf warrior continue to taunt it, to keep the monster focused on them. Completely enraged, the golem fixes its single eye on the adventurers, provoking it. Seeing the perfect opportunity, Desmond gives Rin the signal to begin her assault. With a steely gaze, Rin focuses, ready to execute her part of the plan by taking advantage of the distraction. The warrior dashes forward at full speed, sprinting past the colossus. Saneri watches with bated breath, desperately hoping the plan will work. The rest of her comrades watch anxiously, placing all their faith in Rin's speed. Meanwhile, the golem unleashes a devastating attack on the decoys who dodge it. So close. Desmond watches intently, knowing that everyone's life hangs on this single strike. The entire team puts their faith in Rin, smiling with the certainty of victory. Rin dives from the air, swinging her sword with all her might against the crystal core. Her face shows absolute concentration, channeling all her energy into the decisive attack. With a battle cry, she unleashes a devastating blow upon the golem's weak point. The sword smashes against the core, creating an explosion of light and energy at the point of impact. A triumphant smile lights up her face, convinced she has destroyed the target. However, her expression instantly changes as she realizes something didn't go as planned. To her surprise, the core remains completely intact, protected by an invisible barrier that deflected her attack. The rest of the team watches in disbelief and panic, seeing their last desperate plan has failed. The team realizes the golem doesn't just attack, it consciously defends its core. A cold sweat runs down Desmond's spine as he comprehends the terrifying intelligence of their adversary. Despair fills his eyes as he realizes they're completely trapped. Their only chance vanishes as the crystal core sinks into the ice. A final glint comes from the target, just before it's about to disappear forever. Panic grips the group as they see their only path to victory about to be lost. With a tear of helplessness, Desmond accepts that defeat is imminent. However, a furious shout from the blonde warrior shatters the silence of despair. The unexpected rally snaps Desmond out of his stupor, making him look up again. The warrior demands that they not give up, inspiring her teammates with her unbreakable spirit. Saneri, the archer, grips his bow with renewed determination, ready to act. His teammates look at him in surprise, while Desmond blushes, shocked by his boldness. Without a moment's hesitation, the archer leaps into the air, preparing a shot in mid-flight. He yells furiously that if one person fails, there's always a replacement to carry on the fight. The archer's words echo in Desmond's mind, who watches him with a mix of awe and confusion. A painful memory of a man with the same cruel philosophy flashes through the mage's mind. Saneri channels all his energy into a single arrow, proudly declaring his role on the team. The arrow, imbued with power, flies at a breakneck speed toward the sinking core. The golem's eye snaps wide open as it detects the threat. At the last second, the projectile hits with explosive force, shattering the ice around the target. The team fears the golem will raise its barrier again, preventing the arrow from reaching its mark. But Saneri, with fierce determination, refuses to let their plan fail. The elven mage launches a fireball to intercept the golem's defense. The fire spell clears the way, allowing the arrow to continue on its path, unhindered. The arrow pierces the final energy barrier, heading straight for the exposed core. Desmond watches the brilliant coordination of his teammates in astonishment. The blonde warrior also stands gobsmacked at the unexpected counterattack. The rest of the group stares in awe, unable to believe what they're witnessing. The crystal core finally cracks and shatters into 1,000 pieces. With an expression of pure relief, Desmond confirms that they've finally achieved victory, the core shattering into pieces as Saneri smiles smugly. And the elf mage looks at him in surprise. The rest of the team can't believe what just happened, their faces filled with amazement. Even Rin, who had missed her attack, is left speechless by the unexpected success. The ice golem begins to crumble. Its crystal body cracks completely. The ice colossus collapses with a loud crash before their very eyes. As the adventurers watch in astonishment, a sudden wave of glacial cold envelops the team, making them shiver violently. The ice on the ground begins to move and reconfigure itself in a strange way. A structure emerges from the frozen ground, revealing that the threat is not over yet. The ice structure opens, revealing a secret passage leading into the depths. With the golem defeated, the team now finds themselves facing a new and mysterious path. Desmond watches in amazement as everything around him has completely frozen over. Before them, a colossal monster lies motionless, trapped inside a block of ice. The mage recalls his theory. Destroying the dungeon core would neutralize its inhabitants. The elf mage and the warrior listen to him, awaiting the conclusion of his reasoning. With a decisive gesture, Desmond prepares to declare the outcome of their mission. The team erupts in celebration for the resounding success of their risky operation. His companions congratulate Desmond, acknowledging his incredible leadership in the battle. The blonde warrior hugs him euphorically, but he modestly deflects the praise. Desmond smiles, insisting that the victory was possible thanks to everyone's effort. The group gazes at the frozen monster, in whose chest the dungeon core glows. Desmond's team is left speechless upon identifying the glowing object in the monster's chest. It's the legendary gem of wisdom, the true objective of their mission, Saneri and the blonde warrior. They can't believe the treasure they were looking for was there all along. The purple-haired woman smiles with an air of superiority. While her team celebrates completing the mission, with a swift and decisive move, a hand snatches the gem of wisdom from its place. Desmond's team watches helplessly as the other group takes possession of the valuable treasure. The purple-haired woman brings the gem to her lips, savoring her victory with a triumphant look. With the gem in her possession, she makes Desmond an offer. Join her team if he wants the treasure back. The woman's companions react with surprise. At her insistence on recruiting the mage, she smiles confidently, declaring that her desire to have Desmond on her team is now stronger than ever. One of the rivals defends Desmond, stating that the treasure was a collective achievement. The other team's leader ignores her companion. While Desmond timidly asks to see the gem, she flatly refuses, declaring that the gem is her leverage to negotiate with the mage. With a provocative attitude, the woman challenges Desmond to make a decision. The mage, visibly irritated, loses his patience with the woman's arrogance. In an unexpected move, Desmond launches an attack, demanding that she return the gem. The purple-haired woman is in shock, taking a hit she never saw coming. One of her teammates blushes, shocked by Desmond's sudden show of force, while the other member of the rival team is also frozen by the unexpected aggression. The elven mage and the rest of Desmond's team watch his drastic action, stunned, while Rin and the archer are also perplexed by their leader's bold move. Out of nowhere, a silver-haired man appears and attacks both Desmond and the rival leader. The newcomer's gaze is cold and ruthless, with a glint in his eyes that screams danger. In the midst of the confusion, no one understands what just happened on the battlefield, as the mysterious man lunges at Desmond with overwhelming speed and strength. Desmond is unable to react in time and takes the full impact of the surprise attack. Desmond's team watches in horror as their leader falls defeated by the stranger, while the elven mage and the blonde warrior scream in despair, unable to believe the betrayal. The enraged archer demands an explanation from his teammate, revealing that the attacker is Jin. Jin, now with the gem in his possession, calmly declares that he is completely in his right mind. Jin reveals that his one and only goal from the very beginning was to get his hands on the gem. With contempt, he explains that he tried to obtain it peacefully, but the rival leader refused to cooperate, as the incredulous archer reminds him of their friendship. The archer is unable to process the betrayal, but Jin just scoffs at the idea of friendship, clarifying that he was only using them. The archer remembers talking about groups that steal treasures, finally understanding the terrible truth. Surrounded by a sinister aura, Jin reveals his affiliation with the criminal organization, the Black Underarm. The elven mage and the warrior react with horror upon hearing the group's infamous name. With a malevolent laugh, the traitor confirms that his infiltration was just a means to an end. Anger and a sense of betrayal overwhelm the archer, who grits his teeth in fury, and without hesitation, he draws his bow and fires an arrow, straight at his former comrade. But Jin reacts with annoyance, barely flinching at his ex-teammate's attack. With a flick of his sword, he effortlessly deflects the arrow, calling the attempt useless. The traitor mocks the archer, stating that he's already perfectly aware of his limited power level. Jin looks down on the rest of the team, calling them weak D-rank adventurers without their leader. He arrogantly reveals that his true power far surpasses that of a C-rank adventurer, and the archer grits his teeth, understanding the overwhelming difference in skill between them, while the warrior and the elven mage just watch the scene, paralyzed by helplessness and rage, as Jin announces that now that his true identity is known, he has no reason to hold back. Meanwhile, Desmond and the leader of the other team lie on the ground, seriously injured and unconscious. With a sinister smile and his eyes gleaming with malice, Jin declares his intention to eliminate them all. Jin lunges to attack, determined to eliminate all witnesses to his betrayal, while Desmond remains on the ground, completely unconscious and vulnerable, and the archer curses his own powerlessness, knowing they don't stand a chance against Jin. In desperation, he yells at his teammates that they have to run if they want to survive, as the archer prepares to carry Desmond, urging the others to escape quickly, but Jin blocks their path, ready to finish them off before they can move. With a cruel smile, the traitor warns them that he won't let anyone escape. Jin launches a deadly blow at the archer, who braces for the inevitable impact. Suddenly, a flash of light blocks Jin's sword, much to the archer's surprise. The leader of the rival team is back in the fight, and, despite their injuries, has stopped the attack. The archer sees his life flash before his eyes, paralyzed with terror. However, the rival leader steps in, taking the hit from Jin's sword to protect him. Jin reacts with disbelief and annoyance, seeing his attack foiled once again. Despite the pain, the man stands firm, determined not to yield to the traitor. The elf mage and the rest of the team can't believe their old rival is defending them. The blonde warrior watches the scene with a mix of astonishment and a newfound spark of hope. Jin realizes his attacks aren't connecting, as if an invisible barrier is repelling them. The traitor gets frustrated, unable to understand where such a powerful defense is coming from. Suddenly, everyone turns to see that Desmond, who they thought was unconscious, has gotten to his feet, albeit weakly. Desmond is the source of the mysterious protection, becoming the team's last hope. Jin realizes that Desmond must have activated his staff or cast a spell right as he fell. The rival leader mocks Jin, recognizing that the traitor has made a serious miscalculation. With a malicious smile, Jin admits he hesitated to eliminate Desmond, thinking he might be useful. Filled with rage, the traitor regrets not finishing off the team leader from the start. Both teams watch the tense confrontation, surprised by the unexpected turn of events. However, Jin downplays the setback, declaring that he's already gotten what he came for. The traitor decides to retreat for now and starts to flee through an icy passageway. Before leaving, he mocks them, calling them fools who are easy to manipulate because of their reliance on each other. Jean's cruel words about the convenience of allies resonate and enrage Desmond. Desmond clenches his fist, reflecting bitterly on the betrayal and the true meaning of camaraderie. Desmond feels completely defeated, lamenting that his plan failed and the gem was stolen. Suddenly, an unexpected voice calls Jean the real idiot, catching everyone's attention. The rival team's elf mage and dwarf warrior turn around, equally surprised by the interruption. On the ground, the leader of the rival team, who they thought was unconscious, begins to move despite her injuries. With a defiant look, the woman weakly gets to her feet, warning Jean not to underestimate her. She calls him out on his arrogance, pointing out that his disinterest was so great that he didn't even remember her adventurer class. Desmond and his team watch in astonishment as the woman reminds Jean of the information he ignored, revealing her true class as a thief. The woman shows off the gem she recovered, refusing to hand over the treasure. Jean's expression transforms into one of pure disbelief. Realizing he has been outsmarted and stripped of his prize, Desmond's team is left jaw-dropped. Unable to process the incredible turn of events, the rival team's leader and the blonde warrior watch the reveal with their mouths agape. Jean halts his escape, turning around in disbelief, unable to process when he was outsmarted. With a victorious smirk, the thief savors the moment, relishing the traitor's humiliation. However, the strain is too much for her injured body, and she collapses as her comrades watch. Her leader desperately orders them to tend to her. Meanwhile, Jean takes advantage of the distraction to continue his escape. From a distance, Jean flashes a twisted smile, a mix of amusement and bitter frustration, and Desmond's team is perplexed to see the rival leader. Also lets out a laugh of relief and triumph. Jean angrily admits that he completely underestimated the adventurers, whom he considered trash. With a look filled with hatred, he acknowledges his current defeat, but he promises lethal revenge at their next encounter. His overwhelming killing intent floods the hallway, making everyone shudder in dread. Before disappearing, Jean sows doubt, warning that his organization is everywhere. The echo of his threat resonates in the now empty hallway as the traitor vanishes completely. Back at the dungeon entrance, the adventurers look stunned as they process what happened. The rival leader approaches Desmond, while both teams cooperate to evacuate their injured comrades. The mission is officially concluded as the wounded are prepared for transport. A close-up reveals the unconscious state of the thief and her leader, the unexpected heroes of the day. Desmond and his team silently watch as their former rivals retreat with their comrades. Desmond's team stands united, considering the mission a success. Desmond holds the recovered gem, understanding the true value of unity and camaraderie. With newfound determination, he accepts that his position also makes him a target for future enemies. Back at the imposing headquarters, the teams begin to recover from the grueling mission. The blonde warrior greets the dwarf with renewed energy, showing she's almost recovered. Her comrades ask about her condition, but she downplays her injuries. The warrior thanks Desmond for his protection and asks where he is now. The elf mage explains that the commander has summoned Desmond for a mission debriefing. The team looks worried, as Desmond has been lost in his thoughts. Ever since the betrayal, the scene shifts to the door of the commander's office, where their next move will be decided. Inside, the commander greets Desmond with a smile, congratulating him on a job well done. The commander, leaning back in his chair, states that making his team the leader was the right decision. Desmond, with a grim expression, barely reacts and simply thanks him for the compliment. The commander, with a bottle in hand, adopts a carefree and celebratory attitude. He tries to cheer Desmond up, insisting that he should be celebrating his team's great achievement. Desmond, however, can't bring himself to celebrate, remembering that success came at a high cost, and it wasn't just because of his power. Noticing his concern, the commander asks if he's referring to the two injured adventurers, assuring Desmond that he shouldn't worry, admitting that although their wounds are serious, they will recover. The scene shifts to the treatment room, where the heroes of the mission are being cared for. The commander boasts about the skill of his medical team, guaranteeing a full recovery for the injured. He confirms that even the rival leader, despite her severe injuries, will heal completely thanks to their advanced medicine. The same applies to the thief, who is resting while the doctors work to restore her health. Despite the assurances, Desmond blames himself, convinced that his lack of strength was the cause of others' suffering. The commander assures Desmond that he did more than enough, reminding him of a previous conversation. He reveals that the true purpose of the mission was for Desmond to learn the meaning of camaraderie and determination. Desmond, with his head bowed, confesses that it's precisely because he understood that he now feels a deep fear. His face fills with anguish at the thought of his precious friends getting hurt again. The commander reacts with an understanding laugh, at Desmond's honesty, while his assistant observes the scene. After a bow, Desmond leaves the office, leaving the commander and his assistant alone. The young leader walks alone down the hallway, overwhelmed by the weight of his new responsibilities. The commander's assistant expresses her concern, believing that the role of leader was too heavy a burden for him. The commander, thoughtfully, deduces that Desmond has never had true companions, and that's why he takes all the blame himself. His assistant processes the commander's words, understanding the young man's complex emotional situation. The commander believes that although Desmond is on the verge of collapse, this is a crucial test for his development. In a comedic twist, his assistant confiscates the commander's liquor bottle, who complains helplessly. Meanwhile, Desmond stops dead in his tracks in the hallway, as a strange blue energy emanates from his feet. Tormented, the young leader wonders what he must do to prevent the tragedy from repeating itself. The painful memories of the mission assault him, as he refuses to see his comrades in such danger again. The thought that luck might not be on their side next time, and that someone could die, fills him with dread. Jean's lethal promise of revenge echoes in his mind, reminding him of the constant threat they face. A vision of violence shakes him, paralyzing him with the fear of seeing his friends injured again. Desperate, he clings to the idea that he must do more, that he has to find the power to protect them. His anguish transforms into a look of intense determination, as if he has found an answer. Suddenly, Desmond finds himself in an unfamiliar and gloomy hall, far from the corridor he was in. The young leader looks around, being completely disoriented and not understanding where he is. He realizes he's in a room he doesn't recognize, questioning if it's part of the headquarters. A mysterious figure with a sinister smile slowly reveals itself from the shadows. The entity welcomes him, confessing that it has drawn him to this place on purpose. Startled, Desmond demands to know his captor's identity, before he can react. A swift force with red eyes lunges at him. Desmond's face contorts in panic at the sight of the imminent attack. An invisible impact sends him flying as the ground erupts with energy. He lands hard, unable to avoid the painful impact with the ground. Still on the floor, Desmond sees an imposing figure approaching. Not understanding what's happening, his eyes widen in surprise as he tries to identify his new opponent. A white-haired woman with a sinister smile appears, revealing that she knows about his existence and his power. With sharp fangs and an unsettling welcome, the mysterious woman greets him. Terror grips Desmond as he feels the threatening aura coming from her. He instinctively backs away, recognizing he's facing a superior threat. Without hesitation, he activates his appraisal skill to discover the woman's identity. A blue light emanates from his eyes as he analyzes the enigmatic figure. The result of the appraisal leaves him completely stunned, unable to believe his eyes. His fist clenches tightly, overwhelmed by the shocking revelation. The appraisal reveals monstrous stats, confirming he's up against an S-rank adventurer. Still on the ground, Desmond watches her cautiously, trying to figure out his attacker's identity. With a fanged smile, the woman introduces herself as a member of the Black Armpit organization. The revelation leaves Desmond completely paralyzed, his eyes wide with shock and fear. The mysterious woman points directly at him, declaring with a smile that her sole purpose is to eliminate him. The name Black Armpit echoes in Desmond's mind, and he begins to grasp the gravity of the situation. He remembers Jean's warning about this enemy organization, which targets members of the Chevalier Garden. He breaks into a cold sweat remembering their death threat, but he never imagined they would act so fast. He's stunned by the sheer audacity of an enemy infiltrating their very own headquarters. The woman smiles confidently, confirming Desmond's worst fear. He's facing an S-rank enemy. Overwhelmed by the situation, Desmond clutches his staff, determined to stop her at all costs. The woman mocks his determination to protect his friends with a sinister smile, dismissing any plan he could possibly have. The young leader reacts with surprise, realizing his intentions were read with ease. She lunges forward, unleashing her power and shattering Desmond's magical defense with insulting ease. With an arrogant laugh, the woman boasts about her overwhelming strength, declaring that no strategy could possibly defeat her. The young leader tries to block the next blow with his staff, but the force of the impact is too much for him. His face contorts in pain and surprise as he's enveloped by the attack's powerful energy. The attacker watches from the air as Desmond is slammed violently into the ground. Completely overwhelmed, badly injured, and breathless, the young man tries to get to his feet, struggling to continue the fight. His enemy taunts him, creating a sphere of fire, while reminding him his support magic is useless alone. Trapped by the fire attack, Desmond desperately looks for a way out, before it's too late. The sphere of fire explodes with devastating force, completely consuming the young leader's figure. A violent explosion of smoke and ash rocks the area, obscuring the outcome of the attack in the dust. A boot stomps firmly on the ground, surrounded by a greenish aura of energy. Desmond reveals himself, battered but determined. Activating an enchantment spell to boost his vitality, his enemy mocks him with a smile, noting with amusement that he's used magic to strengthen himself. With disdain, she declares his effort is futile and that he has no chance of winning. The young leader grits his teeth, internally acknowledging the overwhelming power difference between them. Despite knowing his stats are insufficient, his determination drives him to find a way to fight. The woman watches him with a condescending smile, thinking him a fool for his useless resistance. The woman raises a finger, channeling dark energy, as she declares him disqualified. Terror reflects in Desmond's eyes as he realizes his end is imminent. The attacker unleashes a vortex of dark power, an overwhelming technique that looms over the young man. With a sadistic smile, she announces to him that his end has come. The young leader stares in disbelief, unable to react to the sheer scale of the attack. The dark energy rushes toward him, promising an inevitable and final demise. Caught in the attack, Desmond resigns himself to his powerlessness, wondering if this is his end just as all hope fades. His gaze catches the arrival of an unexpected figure. Suddenly, a sorceress appears in the midst of the chaos, surprised to find Desmond there. The young leader recognizes the newcomer as Dorothy, leaving his attacker stunned by the interruption. Desmond watches as the dark attack vanishes, recognizing the attacker as her master. The orb of energy becomes harmless, leaving the young leader completely bewildered. The lethal magic transforms into a harmless shower of confetti and petals that falls around him. Utterly confused, the young man can only stare at the strange beauty of the scene. The white-haired woman congratulates herself on her beautiful magic, adding to Desmond's bewilderment. The young leader stares at her, trying to understand the sudden change in her attitude and appearance. With a proud pose, the mysterious woman introduces herself as Rafim Nolan, Master Noah. Rafim reveals that she is Dorothy's adoptive mother and a member of the 1st Brigade of the Garden. A clan organization chart confirms her high rank, leaving Desmond even more stunned. The young man's shock is so great that his scream of surprise seems to echo throughout the entire headquarters. Desmond and Dorothy watch in amazement as the illusory space vanishes, revealing Rafim's true power. The young leader realizes the entire battlefield was an illusion created by Rafim's incredible magic. Dorothy confronts her master about the attack, but Rafim calmly replies that it was just a slightly rough orientation. The word orientation leaves Desmond completely baffled, unable to believe that was the purpose of the brutal attack. Rafim reveals that Cynthia had told her about him, praising his promising skills as an enchanter. She explains she wanted to meet him since he's Dorothy's partner, but she scoffs, saying she found him on the verge of death. The young man, completely lost, asks her to clarify her words, not understanding the logic behind her actions. Rafim changes her tone and asks him directly why he chose to face her instead of running away. The question takes Desmond by surprise, leaving him speechless and unsure how to answer. She approaches and scolds him, telling him that by not running, when he knew he didn't stand a chance, he proved himself to be a complete idiot. The young man tries to defend his decision, arguing that he couldn't just run away and abandon his comrades. Rafim refutes his argument, explaining that his sacrifice would have been in vain, since his friends would fall after him. With an authoritative gesture, she scolds him that his only sensible option was to escape and call for reinforcements. Desmond is paralyzed by the harsh truth, realizing the error in his reasoning. The master clarifies with a mocking tone that she didn't mean asking for help from low-rank members. She reminds him that S-rank warriors like herself exist in the garden, whom he should have gone to. Cold sweat runs down Desmond's face as he grasps the magnitude of his mistake. Rafim tells him he's carrying a responsibility that isn't his to bear, blaming himself for everything. Dorothy joins in on the scolding, as Rafim warns him that his stubbornness to fight alone won't save anyone. With frustration, the master demands to know why he refuses to trust in the power of his allies. The master's words echo in Desmond's mind, sparking a revelation in his eyes. The young leader tries to articulate a response, but the words get stuck in his throat. Dorothy gently takes his hands, offering him her unconditional support in a tender gesture. She agrees with her master, reaffirming that he shouldn't carry the entire burden alone. Sincerely, she asks him to share the responsibility of the mission with the rest of the team. She reminds him that all their comrades feel the same, wishing they could have done more to help. The sorceress assures him that just as he worries about them, they also worry deeply about him. Dorothy confesses that they feel lonely and left out when he refuses to rely on their strength. His teammates' words take him by surprise, moving him to his very core. Overwhelmed with emotion, the young leader's eyes fill with tears as he understands the value of their bonds. The young man reproaches himself, admitting he didn't understand the true meaning of having a team. With tears in his eyes, he finally understands that he has many allies he can rely on. As Dorothy comforts him, the weight on his heart lightens, freeing him from his self-imposed burden. Rafim watches the scene with a satisfied smile, pleased with the outcome of her lesson. Dorothy hugs her teammate, while her master considers this troublesome moment an essential part of youth. The young leader reflects, acknowledging that although inexperienced, he now better understands his role in the clan. Rafim recalls Cynthia's effusive praise, noting that her feelings for Desmond go beyond simple friendship. With a mischievous smile, the master plans to tell Cynthia about their encounter, anticipating her amusing reaction. Just at that moment, Cynthia appears at the door, oblivious to the situation that has just unfolded. Rafim stealthily slides over to Cynthia, ready to set her little, funny plan in motion. Cynthia arrives and misunderstands the scene, believing Desmond is crying on another woman's chest. Rafim takes advantage of the confusion and whispers something to Cynthia, unleashing her jealous fury. The master smiles smugly, reveling in the chaos she has just caused. The misunderstanding causes a silent threat to loom over the unsuspecting young leader. Completely embarrassed, Desmond tries to wipe away his tears and compose himself. The young man apologizes to Dorothy, who reassures him with an understanding smile. Desmond admits his embarrassment for having cried on her, while Dorothy is just happy that he's trusting them. His mind, however, fixates on the specific detail of where he rested his head. The image of him finding comfort there replays in his head, making him blush even harder. The poor leader is completely paralyzed by embarrassment, unable to process the situation. Desmond's mind explodes, torn between embarrassment and an untimely thought about his luck. His gaze lands on a furious, blushing Cynthia, with Rafin enjoying the chaos from behind her. Cynthia's eyes swirl with jealousy as she processes the sight of Desmond crying on another woman. Desmond frantically tries to explain the misunderstanding, but the words just won't come out. Embarrassment and rage overwhelm Cynthia, manifesting as an all-consuming blush. The scene changes, introducing the Labyrinth Association that manages adventurers. Inside the building, a man is venting his fury on a wall, scaring his teammates. A red-haired woman tries to calm the furious warrior, a man named Adele. Adele erupts in rage, shouting that it's impossible to calm down given what's happened. He reveals the reason for his anger. His B-rank team has been demoted to C rank. The red-haired woman resigns herself to it, admitting that their losing streak in the dungeons has led them to this situation. Nearby, other adventurers are mocking their misfortune, while Adele listens to their comments, his face twitching with rage. The rumors spread like wildfire, revealing that the team has been banned from B-rank dungeons. Their rivals gloat, speculating that they might soon drop to D rank, and sneeringly recalling their days as rising stars. The other adventurers pile on with the taunts, commenting on how humiliated they'd be in their shoes. Adele's team stands isolated in the middle of the hall, feeling the weight of all the stares and whispers around them. The blonde warrior regretfully admits that their arrogant attitude in the past has earned them a lot of enemies. Unable to hold back any longer, Adele erupts with a furious, bloodshot-eyed scream, cursing out everyone mocking them. Adele's anger boils over and he grabs one of the adventurers by the collar, starting a physical fight. His teammates quickly intervene, trying to stop him and warning that violence will only make things worse. The adventurer Adele is holding mocks him, sneeringly questioning the strength of his grip. To his teammates' surprise, the man confirms that Adele's grip is pathetically weak. The confrontation becomes a public humiliation, as others wonder if this team was ever actually strong. Despite his teammates' attempts to pull him away, Adele is frozen with shame and rage. A new rumor starts making the rounds, mentioning that the team's former enchanter was incredibly skilled. The mention of their former teammate provokes a reaction of anger and surprise on Adele's face. The gossip reveals that Espada's downfall coincided with the departure of their enchanter, who has now apparently joined an elite clan. The insinuation that they were abandoned by their most valuable member causes Adele's fury to reach its boiling point. Unable to take any more humiliation, the team retreats, under a barrage of whispers and mocking glares. The three members of the fallen team sit in silence. They reflect on their disastrous situation. The red-haired woman laments their lack of options, admitting they have no money for a new enchanter. She shows a wound, explaining that their gear is falling apart and their failures in dungeons are constant. Distressed, she realizes their debts are growing out of control and bankruptcy is imminent. The blonde warrior adds that another failure could cost them their adventurer licenses, sealing their fate. Adele, consumed by despair, bites his thumb in helpless rage. The young warrior's frustration intensifies, eating him up inside in the face of their humiliating reality. His blonde companion breaks the silence, mentioning that the rumor they heard earlier won't stop bothering him. The woman confirms his suspicions. Their downfall began right when Desmond left. She adds that it's not just bad luck on missions, but she also feels a strange weight on her body. Adele suddenly shivers, confessing that they get tired faster and their bad luck seems to have increased drastically. Adele reaches a terrible conclusion, his eyes bloodshot as he identifies the culprit. His companions look at him confused, not understanding his sudden revelation. The warrior punches the ground in a fury, blaming Desmond for all their misfortunes. Convinced, Adele accuses his former companion of having cursed them to cause their downfall. His mind twists with violent thoughts, vowing to get revenge on Desmond in the cruelest way possible. The red-haired woman tries to reason with him, doubting that Desmond is really responsible. An outside voice mocks their pathetic situation as the party walks away humiliated. Adele's gaze burns with pure hatred, completely consumed by his desire for revenge. Suddenly, footsteps approach, interrupting their moment of despair. A young man with silver hair appears with a radiant smile, claiming to know about Desmond. The mysterious young man reveals he recently joined Desmond in a dungeon, calling him the worst enchanter with a disturbing smile. The stranger claims his identity is irrelevant and that he only wishes to be of help to them. Adele's party looks at him with suspicion, wondering why someone would suddenly want to help them. An intense and malicious gaze confirms his proposal, making it clear that his intentions are not pure. His true motivation comes to light. He offers them a foolproof method to get revenge on Desmond. The story changes scenes, transporting us to a quiet and prosperous city. We are introduced to the Great Library of Bristol, an imposing building dedicated to knowledge. Inside, an atmosphere of study and scholarship reigns among endless bookshelves. Among the scholars, we find a Desmond completely focused on his reading. Desmond reflects on what he has learned, realizing the profound complexity of enchantment magic. He realizes that he has been blindly depending on his unique multiplication skill. However, what impacts him the most is discovering a revolutionary method to use it. Desmond discovers the technique of enchantment stacking, a revelation that leaves him stunned. He understands that unlike addition, his skill multiplies the base power, creating exponential growth. The young enchanter smiles as he calculates the incredible value he could achieve with this technique. He reflects that this method goes beyond simple invincibility. Opening up a world of possibilities, however, his research reveals that this technique is considered forbidden and is legally banned. Just as he's wondering why, a mysterious hooded figure appears. Stealthily behind him, the woman greets him, startling him in the middle of his concentration. Embarrassed, Desmond tries to shush her, attracting the curious gazes of others in the library. Cynthia explains that after finishing her mission, she decided to look for him since she had free time. In reality, she came to playfully keep an eye on him after finding out the kid was in the library. With a smile, she gets closer and praises his admirable dedication to his studies. The girl's closeness makes him nervous, and a pleasant scent completely distracts him. Cynthia, aware of the effect she's having, she gives him a mischievous and playful look. Overwhelmed by her closeness, Desmond blushes and feels completely cornered. The charming young man, in a state of bliss, declares that libraries are wonderful places. Cynthia's serene beauty captivates him, leaving him speechless for a moment. The young man can't help but think how incredibly beautiful his companion is. He also reflects that her popularity is natural, being a strong and kind S-rank adventurer. Suddenly, Desmond realizes that his companion is the center of all eyes in the silent library. A murmur spreads through the room as the others recognize the famous S-rank adventurer, Cynthia. Feeling watched, they both decide it's time for a quick and discreet escape. The librarian tries to restore order, but even she is surprised to see the legendary heroine in person. Those present identify her as the Iceblood Princess, a nickname that makes Cynthia blush with embarrassment. Desmond, confused by the title, looks at his companion who looks like she wants the ground to swallow her whole. To speed up their escape, Cynthia grabs Desmond by the wrist, dragging him urgently towards the exit. The gesture unleashes a new wave of rumors, and everyone wonders who the young man accompanying the princess is. The crowd reaches a scandalous conclusion, speculating that he might be her lover, which embarrasses them both. Completely overwhelmed by the situation, Cynthia insists on leaving. Pulling an equally stunned Desmond, a blushing and embarrassed Cynthia drags Desmond with a firm step to escape the crowd. The charming young man looks at her, completely bewildered by the sudden and chaotic escape. The heroine tries to hide her face under her hood, unable to hide her embarrassment. Together they walk away from the library, with Cynthia leading the way without letting go of his hand. The contact of her armored hand with his seals their unexpected closeness. Amidst the chaos, Desmond can't help but blush intensely, feeling his heart race at the gesture. Despite the embarrassment, a small smile forms on his face as he enjoys the moment. Suddenly, Cynthia turns around with a radiant smile, transforming the tense escape into a magical moment. Once safely outside, the warrior apologizes to him for the commotion she caused. She confesses that she only wanted to see him but ended up interrupting his important research. Desmond plays it down, assuring her that it doesn't bother him and that he can go back to the library another time. With a radiant smile, he confesses that he was actually happier spending time with her. His sincere words move Cynthia, who looks at him with obvious tenderness. Suddenly, Desmond remembers her nickname, the Ice Blood Princess, leaving Cynthia completely embarrassed. She explains with resignation that S-rank adventurers usually get nicknames they can't avoid. Intrigued, Desmond mentions that his other companion, Rafim, is known as the Crimson Madness. Cynthia reveals that Rafim's nickname is due to her ferocious, destructive impulses, which terrifies Desmond. The young man remembers his own fight against Rafim, realizing that she held back tremendously. Desmond then wonders if Cynthia's title is due to her icy, princess-like beauty. Hearing this, Cynthia gives him a charming and satisfied smile, clearly pleased by the compliment. The charming young man expresses his desire to witness Cynthia's power in combat someday. Suddenly, his companions Rin and Garin appear, running and shouting his name in desperation. Desmond, along with Cynthia, turns to face them, asking what's causing such a commotion. The news hits them like a lightning bolt. Their friend Dorothy has been kidnapped. The sunset sky paints the scene with urgency as they process the shocking revelation. Without wasting any time, the group heads to the main headquarters in search of more information. Upon arriving, they run into Rafim, who demands an explanation for Dorothy's disappearance. Rafim recounts that she sent Dorothy on an errand, but she never returned and her magical trace vanished. The leader deduces that she was ambushed by someone capable of hiding their presence, a thought that alarms Desmond, who is driven by worry. The charming young man runs off, determined to find his friend. A guard informs Rafim that the mercenary group has captured 2 suspicious individuals, and the kidnappers are demanding to see Desmond in exchange for revealing Dorothy's location. The young man is stunned, not understanding why the captors are looking for him. Bewildered, Desmond wonders what he has to do with his friend's kidnapping. The revelation hits him. The 2 captured individuals are members of his old sword clan. As night falls, the group quickly heads to where the prisoners are being held, arriving at the city prison, a gloomy place where they hope to get answers. One of his former companions, with an icy glare, greets him with palpable resentment from her cell. She blames him directly, claiming that his departure led to the clan's ruin. His other former companion reveals that a mysterious man offered them a chance to get revenge on him. The former companion reveals that the mysterious man's name was Jean, a revelation that shocks Desmond. They confess that Jean's plan was to kidnap Dorothy, the most vulnerable one, to lure Desmond into a trap. They recall with fear how they tried to stop their leader, Adele, but he, blinded by revenge, wouldn't listen. A flashback shows how they were brutally pushed aside by their own clan. For opposing the plan, they were intentionally left behind to serve as messengers, a final humiliation. They deliver the message. He must go alone to the Crystal Caverns, and without the help of any S-rank adventurers. The threat is clear if he doesn't obey. Dorothy's life will be in grave danger. With a grim look on his face, Desmond asks for the deadline to meet their demands. The answer is blunt. He has until dawn the next day to rescue her. The sun sets on the horizon, marking the start of a race against time to save his friend. Without wasting a second, Desmond delves into the ominous crystal caverns. The inside of the cave is filled with sharp stalactites and gleaming crystals in a vast cavern. The stage for the confrontation is already set. A single firm step on the crystal floor announces the hero's arrival into the trap. In the distance, on a ledge, his former companions are waiting with Dorothy as a hostage. Desmond and his group arrive at the spot, witnessing the terrible scene from below, where she lies tied up on the ground. Dorothy sees her friends and her face lights up with a mix of relief and fear. The group reacts with anguish and rage upon confirming their friend's condition. Desmond's gaze fills with an icy fury, ready to do whatever it takes. Finally, the young man confronts his former leader, Adele, the mastermind behind the kidnapping. A furious Adele scolds Desmond for not coming alone, violating his conditions. Jean, with a sinister smile, brushes off Desmond's companions, considering them mere weaklings. Outraged, Desmond demands an explanation from Adele, insisting they could have solved their problems by talking. Rage consumes Adele, who responds with a scream, filled with deep resentment. The ex-leader accuses Desmond of having ruined them with a supposed curse that tarnished their reputation. Completely baffled, Desmond listens as Adele blames him for their clan's downfall. From below, the young man flatly denies the accusations, not understanding what curse he is talking about. Jean mocks Adele, calling him pathetic for blaming others for his own failure and resentment. Garan, filled with rage, steps in, defending Adele's supposed right to seek revenge. Rin, losing her patience, demands to know the identity of the mysterious man and the immediate release of Dorothy. Garan defiantly claims that with Desmond's enchantments, They are more than capable of defeating them. Jean replies with a malicious grin, clearly amused by their naive confidence. The mysterious man reveals that his organization is dedicated to pillaging and conducting strange research. Jean pulls out a syringe with a red liquid, a product of his sinister experiments. In a shocking twist, Jean injects the substance into an unsuspecting Adele's neck. From below, Desmond and his companions watch the scene, paralyzed with horror. Adele, confused and in pain, demands an explanation from Jean for his sudden betrayal. Jean cruelly mocks him, revealing he was only using Adele and for his own ends. Adele's body begins to mutate horribly, his arm transforming into a monstrous claw. Consumed by pain, the ex-leader screams as the grotesque transformation takes over his body. Adele's transformation continues, his mouth twisting into a monstrous maw. The group screams in horror as they hear the pained screams of their former leader. Rin watches the scene with a look of absolute panic on her face. A blood-curdling scream echoes throughout the cavern, marking the climax of the mutation. Shin smiles maliciously, revealing his plan to let the weak destroy each other. Adele's hand, now a grotesque claw, clings to the crystalline floor. The former leader, completely transformed, continues to scream, consumed by unbearable pain. From below, Desmond sees the creature that Adele has become, who seems to be begging for help before collapsing. The creature's eyes are bloodshot, filled with an animalistic and uncontrolled rage. Desmond's face reflects the horror of the situation, preparing himself for the inevitable. In his last moments of consciousness, Adele murmurs a desperate plea for help. Desmond screams his former leader's name, watching the spot where the chaos erupted. An explosion of reddish energy emanates from Adele's body, completing the terrifying metamorphosis. The young man covers his face, overwhelmed by the shockwave and the terrible sight. His gaze hardens, accepting the harsh reality of the situation that he must face. His eyes reflect an unwavering determination to stop the beast. Adele's body expands to a colossal size, covered in hard gray scales. The transformation culminates, revealing an imposing dragon crying tears of blood from the pain. Desmond is paralyzed with disbelief at the monstrous creature before him. The beast, with its multiple red eyes, no longer shows any trace of Adele's humanity. Rena, terrified, can't believe the size of the creature that towers before them. Desmond's face contorts in pure panic as he comprehends the magnitude of the threat. Desperate, the young man screams at his companions to escape while they can. The beast unleashes a roar that shakes the cavern to its very foundations. The cave's ceiling begins to crumble, raining down rocks and sharp crystals. Huge fragments of the cavern fall on the group, who unsuccessfully try to dodge them. Desmond is knocked down by the shockwave, struggling to get back on his feet amidst the chaos. As he gets up, he discovers in horror that his friends have been buried by the debris. Rena is unconscious on the ground, injured by the falling rocks. Beside her, Garen has also been knocked out, completely defenseless. Desperate, Desmond screams out to his fallen companions, fearing for their lives. Suddenly, he feels the ominous presence of the beast behind him, stalking him. Panic takes over his face as he realizes he is now all alone against the monster. He swallows hard, unable to process that where Adele once stood, there is now only a nightmarish creature. With newfound determination, his eye glows with a blue light as he activates his appraisal eye skill. A status window reveals the beast's identity. Its name is Adele, and its race is a hydra. Disbelief hits him as he confirms that his former leader has become a mythological creature. The information is clear. The monstrous hydra before him is, without a doubt, Adele. The beast roars with fury, confirming the unthinkable transformation of a human into a monster. Desmond grits his teeth, consumed by rage at such a cruel and heartless act. Upon analyzing the beast, Desmond is horrified to see that its stats are overwhelmingly high. He realizes the creature's power is A+ rank, a force that not even his enchantments can match. From within the dust, a familiar figure rises. It's Dorothy, the elf who had been captured. Desmond approaches her and she explains that the cave-in broke her bonds, allowing her to break free. Suddenly, the young man senses an imminent attack and lunges to protect Dorothy. The Hydra's monstrous tail smashes violently into the ground, right where they had been standing just seconds before. Terrified, Desmond realizes the group has reunited, but the danger is greater than ever, with the exit blocked by rubble. The young man comes to a grim conclusion. They must defeat the beast to survive. Rin bravely offers to be a decoy and asks Desmond to enhance her abilities for the battle. However, he rejects the idea, knowing that even with his magic, they couldn't reach the power needed to defeat the Hydra. Rin, desperate, demands that Desmond tell her his plan now that he has rejected hers. The young man's face hardens, showing a grim and absolute determination, with an unsettling calm. Desmond reveals there's only one way forward. His companions look at him in surprise, not understanding what he means. The young mage reveals his trump card, the layered enchantment technique. Dorothy and Rin react with horror, as the elf recognizes that this technique is forbidden. They both try to stop him, warning him that it's the ultimate taboo, and among mages. Desmond insists that, despite the risk, it's the only option they have left to survive. The young man explains that this technique allows him to layer the same spell to multiply its power, without limits. Rin gets excited about the idea, but Desmond clarifies that he will be the one to receive the dangerous enchantment. Dorothy warns a confused Rin that the technique has a terrible side effect. The young warrior is stunned to hear the warning about the dangerous spell. The elf explains that the user's body is destroyed when the enchantment ends, with consequences that can be fatal. Desperate, Dorothy begs Desmond to stop, reminding him that's why it's a forbidden technique. Ignoring her pleas, the young man extends his hand, determined to use the mage's taboo. Seeing his resolve, Desmond begins to explain his personal connection to the creature. The mage reveals that the beast is Adele, a former member of his party. A memory shows that his relationship with Adele was contentious and ended in the worst possible way. Desmond admits with regret that he feels partly responsible for his former leader's monstrous transformation. With a firm gaze, he insists that facing him is his responsibility and asks them to let him handle it. Dorothy watches Desmond, moved, understanding the depth of his pain. The young mage walks away from his companions, walking resolutely toward the beast. He positions himself alone in front of the monstrous creature, ready for the showdown. The Hydra greets him with a deafening roar, its eyes glowing with crimson fury. A memory shows him that with his new party, he finally understood the true meaning of camaraderie, filling him with regret. He admits he should have communicated better with his old team. The beast responds furiously, as if it regretted not being more forceful in the past. From Adele's perspective, it's revealed that he also felt abandoned by a group that depended on Desmond. The creature roars, expressing that in the end, he abandoned them too. Just as it prepares to strike, a hand grabs it firmly from behind, stopping it. Desmond yells at the beast, insisting that it's time to settle their unfinished business. With his voice breaking with regret, he cries out that he will now correct the mistakes of the past. The creature seems to react to his words, as Desmond vows to make amends for everything he couldn't do before. In response, the Hydra gathers an ominous purple energy in its jaws, ready to attack. The beast unleashes a devastating breath of dark energy directly at the young mage. Desmond stands firm, facing the massive attack that threatens to annihilate him all alone. With an unwavering gaze, the young man prepares his own spell, his staff glowing with a protective light. The Hydra's attack hits an invisible barrier, generating a colossal explosion of power. Amidst the smoke from the collision, a notification reveals that Desmond has used his enchantment magic. A status window shows that he has boosted his strength, vitality, agility, and resistance. The young mage doesn't stop and applies a second layer of enchantment on himself. A notification confirms that the strength, vitality, agility, and resistance spells have been duplicated. Unsatisfied, Desmond pushes the limits of the forbidden technique and adds a third layer of power, showing no signs of stopping. The mage stacks a fourth layer, exponentially multiplying his abilities. His original status window shows his humble, base stats before the dangerous ritual. The numbers on his profile begin to distort and increase at a dizzying speed. His stats reach absurd figures, surpassing 10 million in an instant. An overwhelming energy emanates from his body and, with a single step, he cracks the ground beneath his feet. His new status reveals a colossal power, with stats that rival those of a god. With a defiant fury, Desmond yells at the beast, ready to begin the final battle against Adele. The Hydra lunges to attack, its jaws ready to tear its opponent apart. The beast watches Desmond with its multiple crimson eyes, recognizing the immense power now emanating from him. Shrouded in a golden aura, the young mage faces it with unwavering determination. Without hesitation, the creature pounces on him, determined to end the fight with a single bite. The beast's gigantic jaws loom over the mage, threatening to devour him whole. But instead of being crushed, a flash of power stops the brutal bite in its tracks. In the distance, his female companions watch the scene in a panic, fearing the worst for their friend. With superhuman strength, Desmond's hand grabs onto one of the fangs of the beast. The young mage stops the creature's jaws with his bare hands, demonstrating his incredible power. With a single move, Desmond throws the colossal Hydra off balance, violently tossing it to the side. With visible effort, Desmond channels his overwhelming power. Gritting his teeth, the young mage roars in fury. Unleashing all the pent-up energy in his body, his golden aura explodes, shattering the ground around him. As he prepares to attack, the Hydra, stunned by the display of strength, roars with a mix of surprise and pain. Without giving it time to react, Desmond lunges at the beast's massive body, moving at a blinding speed. Propelling himself across the battlefield like a golden lightning bolt, his gaze locks onto his target, analyzing the exact spot to land the next blow. The mage concentrates his power into his fist, which crackles with devastating energy, with unstoppable force. He smashes it directly into the creature's side. The beast writhes from the impact, taking considerable damage from the powerful blow. His companions watch in disbelief, unable to comprehend the feat they just witnessed. Enraged, the Hydra counterattacks with a torrent of dark energy from its maws, but Desmond faces it with a cold stare. His determination stronger than ever, the beast changes tactics and launches a brutal claw swipe, seeking to crush him without mercy. The young mage stands firm, withstanding the impact that kicks up a curtain of dust and debris. With a defiant calm, he prepares to strike back, his golden aura blazing with intensity. He intercepts it with his hand, stopping the creature's gigantic claw dead in its tracks. Gritting his teeth, the mage resists the beast's overwhelming force, his energy crackling around his hand as he fights for control against the monstrous claw. Planting his feet firmly, Desmond cracks the ground beneath him, ready to unleash his power. With a war cry, Desmond unleashes an explosion of golden power, using his tremendous strength. He lifts the gigantic Hydra over his head. His companions watch the scene, completely dumbfounded by the incredible feat. In a single motion, he hurls the colossal beast into the air, sending it flying across the battlefield. The young mage catches his breath, his determination intact after the display of strength. In the distance, the group can't believe the Hydra was overpowered so easily. The creature roars in pure fury. Its crimson eyes burn with hatred after the humiliation. Upon landing, the beast faces Desmond again, opening its maws to counterattack. The Hydra's body begins to swell and warp, surrounded by a sinister dark energy. His friends sense that the situation has become much more dangerous. Suddenly, the Hydra unleashes its most devastating attack, a tail swipe meant to annihilate its opponent. The impact is so brutal, it makes the entire cavern shake, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. While his companions worry, the blonde elf smiles. Fully trusting in Desmond's power, a dense cloud of dust and debris hides the outcome of the violent clash. The beast stares at the crater it created, searching for its enemy's remains, its multiple crimson eyes. They gleam with triumphant malice, believing it has won, but Desmond emerges unscathed, launching through the air directly towards the creature's head with a furious shout. The young mage prepares a punch charged with golden energy, his gaze burning with absolute determination, ready to deliver the finishing blow. The Hydra's eye widens, reflecting its terror as it sees the mage about to strike. Desmond's fist explodes in a golden flash, striking the Hydra directly in the head. The beast's silhouette roars silently as the energy from the blow consumes its head. The creature's body twists through the air, completely destabilized by the final attack. The Hydra crashes to the ground, its head hitting with a force that leaves it motionless. In the distance, his companions watch the beast's lifeless body, stunned by the victory. The young mage lands, his golden aura dissipating, as he catches his breath after the battle. The group can't believe what they're seeing, wondering if he really managed to defeat it, but the Hydra's body begins to glow with a purple light, signaling that the danger isn't over. The blonde elf screams in surprise, realizing the situation has taken an unexpected turn. Desmond, however, winks at the new threat with unshakable confidence. The purple light explodes, revealing that the Hydra was not what it seemed. From the beast's remains, a dark and threatening humanoid silhouette emerges. Its monstrous claws dig into the ground, showing its true and terrifying nature. The creature's form reverts, transforming back into a human body. In the Hydra's place lies a gray-haired man, unconscious on the ground. His companions realize that Desmond is back to normal, his power no longer visible. The young mage looks at the defeated man, the true enemy hidden behind the beast, with a surprised expression. Desmond seems to recognize the man fallen at his feet. In the distance, the rest of the group processes the victory, relieved but still astonished. While his friends celebrate the triumph, Desmond's attention remains fixed on his mysterious adversary. The defeated man mutters something about a complete victory before falling unconscious. Desmond smirks smugly, his golden aura still crackling around him. Suddenly, an ominous feeling runs through his body, as if something is breaking inside. His hand begins to tremble uncontrollably, a sign that something is terribly wrong. He loses his balance, as his legs refuse to respond, shaking violently. The young mage realizes with horror that he's suffering the side effects of his power. His companions watch helplessly, their faces filled with panic as they see his condition. A scream of agony escapes his lips as unbearable pain consumes him. A series of notifications details the devastating injuries his body is suffering. Despite the torment, He remains standing, facing the consequences with an unbreakable will. The pain becomes so intense that his face contorts into a grimace of pure agony. Finally, his body gives out, and he collapses violently to the ground, before the astonished eyes of his friends. Panic grips the group, who don't know how to help their fallen comrade lying on the ground. Desmond's consciousness begins to fade from the immense damage he suffered. With his last bit of strength, he realizes that paralysis has taken hold of his entire body. He feels every fiber of his being tearing apart, paying the price for exceeding his limits. Suddenly, a flurry of ice crystals appears out of nowhere, interrupting the tense scene. The group turns in alarm, surprised by the sudden manifestation of a new power. The gray-haired man stands up, screaming Desmond's name with uncontrolled fury, accusing Desmond of betrayal and of trying to end his life, revealing a previous connection. The gray-haired man accuses them, but the blonde girl retorts furiously, calling him the worst of adventurers. The dark-haired elf trembles with rage, silently wishing the worst of fates upon her enemy. Fed up with the shouting, the man demands they shut up, his patience reaching its limit. The blonde girl and the dwarf are stunned by the man's sudden burst of anger. The young blonde scolds the elf, unable to believe her cruelty and lack of empathy towards Desmond. Through tears, the elf explains that Desmond could have used enchantments instead of risking his life. The gray-haired man listens intently, his expression changing as he processes the new information. The elf reveals that layering enchantments is a forbidden technique that destroys the user's body. With a broken voice, the blonde girl insists that Desmond had no need to face him directly. She explains that he could have easily defeated him from a distance, causing him to collapse from his own power. The elf screams that this technique is not only dangerous but also forbidden by law. Through her tears, she recalls begging Desmond to stop, revealing that he understood and didn't use his power against the man. The gray-haired man is stunned as he understands that Desmond chose to sacrifice himself instead of destroying him. She explains that Desmond faced him directly because he was trying to help him like a true comrade. She berates him that his inability to understand Desmond's nobility was what led him to exile him. The adversary processes the shocking truth. The young man he betrayed was a valuable companion. His gaze reveals a deep shock, realizing the terrible mistake he has made. The elf, desperate, begs him not to make Desmond suffer anymore, who lies, helpless on the ground. Desmond's gaze is distant, barely aware of the drama unfolding around him. Suddenly, an unknown figure appears, watching the group and their fallen comrade from above. The newcomer clicks his tongue, considering the whole situation a waste of time. The group stares at him in astonishment, while he mocks their melodrama, calling it nonsense. The blonde girl has a sudden realization, her eyes widening in surprise. With a malicious smile, the silver-haired man surrounds himself with crackling energy, drawing his short sword, ready to finish them off without hesitation. His face contorts into a sneer of contempt, certain that defeating them will cost him nothing. He unleashes a devastating wave of purple energy directly at Desmond's companions. The impact of the attack sends the entire group flying, scattering them violently. From the ground, Desmond watches in helpless fury as his friends are attacked. The mysterious attacker closes in on Desmond, declaring that his end has come. The silver-haired attacker gloats, ordering Desmond to crawl and die. An overwhelming pillar of purple energy descends upon the helpless Desmond. Terrified, the young mage can only watch, as his end draws relentlessly closer. His eyes widen in desperation, refusing to accept what is about to happen. Suddenly, a hand intervenes, an unexpected gesture to stop the catastrophe. The gray-haired man throws himself in front of Desmond, taking the direct impact of the attack. Desmond watches, stunned, unable to understand why his former leader is protecting him. The attacker is furious to see his killing blow has been intercepted. His expression changes to one of total disbelief at this turn of events. Desmond's former adversary now becomes his shield, enduring the brutal attack. Desmond watches in disbelief, unable to understand why his former leader has sacrificed himself for him. The gray-haired man grits his teeth, enduring the devastating power of the attack with all his might. Desperate, the young mage screams his protector's name, watching the scene in horror. The force of the impact is so brutal that it cracks the ground beneath the man's feet, as he resists. Finally, the energy consumes him and sends him flying, leaving him gravely injured on the ground. Confusion and anguish overwhelm Desmond, who demands an explanation for such a sacrifice as he crawls toward him. The young mage keeps asking why he protected him after everything that happened. With his last bit of strength, the injured man tells him to be quiet, his face covered in blood. Desmond stops, watching his former captain, who lies dying in front of him with a resigned smile. He reveals that true comrades protect each other, even if it means sacrifice. Desmond lies on the ground, processing his former captain's last words. Tears well up in his eyes as he whispers the name of the man who sacrificed himself for him. Without mercy, the attacker kicks Adele's dying body, showing his absolute contempt. The impact is brutal, and the gray-haired man spits up blood, his life fading away. Filled with helpless rage, Desmond screams at the attacker to get away from his fallen comrade. The silver-haired man mocks him, pretending not to hear him with a condescending smile. With a look of pure malice, he declares that he has no intention of listening to the pleas of a dead man. Desmond grits his teeth, his face a mixture of rage and despair at his own powerlessness. Out of nowhere, a powerful blast of blue energy heads straight for the villain. The attacker's jaw drops, completely surprised by the sudden intervention. Two mysterious figures arrive on the scene, congratulating Desmond on his effort. They are revealed to be two female warriors, one in armor and the other with a sinister smile, ready to take control. From the ground, Desmond recognizes the newcomers. As the villain turns, surprised by their appearance, the attacker grits his teeth, realizing he is facing female warriors. Frustrated by their immense power, he pulls out a syringe with a red liquid, regretting not having acted before they arrived. Facing the warriors' impassive stares, the desperate villain orders them not to move. He grabs Desmond and threatens him with a lethal injection, using him as a hostage. The syringe needle dangerously grazes the young mage's neck, just about to inject the substance. With a crazed laugh, he boasts that he can end Desmond's life in an instant. Suddenly, stakes of blue energy pierce the villain, brutally interrupting his threat. The villain looks on in disbelief, feeling the pain from the surprise attack. He gasps as he looks at the energy stakes that have pierced through his body. In that instant, Desmond has a revelation and understands the truth about one of the warriors. He remembers that her nickname isn't because of her beauty, but something much more fearsome. The blue energy crackles intensely, completely immobilizing the silver-haired man. The villain writhes in pain, unable to break free from the power entrapping him. The armored warrior effortlessly subdues him, her imposing figure dominating the scene with an icy gaze. The warrior orders him to shut up, showing her absolute contempt. The villain is slammed against the ground, defeated by the warrior's overwhelming strength. Desmond finally understands that the warrior's nickname comes from her relentless and cold cruelty in combat. The armored warrior watches the scene with a cold gaze, proving why they call her the ice-blooded princess. Her companion mocks the defeated villain, declaring that he's beyond saving now. The armored warrior scolds her for her carefree attitude and orders her to tend to the injured immediately. She kneels beside Desmond, worried about his condition. As he asks if it's all over, the young mage bitterly reveals that his wounds are a side effect of his own power and that healing is useless. In despair, he laments that his career as an adventurer is over, breaking a childhood promise. The scene changes to an imposing castle, marking the end of the whirlwind of revenge. The castle's interior is shown, a silent hallway leading to the recovery area. A sign above a door confirms they've taken Desmond to the infirmary, even though the battle is over. A new and painful chapter begins for the young mage. The castle hallway leads to the recovery area, a place of calm after the storm. A sign on the door confirms that Desmond is in the infirmary. As he begins his recovery, the young mage blushes, overwhelmed by all the attention, while his companions try to feed him. Surrounded by the warriors, Desmond insists he can take care of himself, feeling a strange sense of familiarity with the situation. Suddenly, his old guildmates burst into the room, offering to take care of him with overwhelming enthusiasm. The young mage, seeing everyone gathered together, he's concerned about the recovery of his comrades. One of his old friends recalls the rumors about Desmond's terrible condition and how it was impossible to cure him. However, the adventurer's expression changes, hinting that the story didn't end as expected. It's revealed that the side effects were nullified by a miracle, a sacrifice from the commander who absorbed the damage. With a grim expression, Desmond confesses his guilt, explaining that the commander sacrificed himself to save him. The commander, with a smile, asks him not to blame himself, but to see it as something done for his own good. He explains that it's a leader's duty to protect his subordinates, and that his career as an adventurer was already over anyway. One of his female comrades sighs, moved by the commander's nobility. Desmond argues back, worried that the commander's condition will affect his daily life, and brings up that he used a forbidden technique. His comrades remind him that he was pardoned for using it, since it was in self-defense. The commander reassures him once more, insisting that he shouldn't worry about the problems he thinks he caused. He reveals that the higher-ups decided it was more valuable for Desmond to be healthy than for an almost retired man like himself. With pride, he states that it's an honor for a veteran to take a risk for a young and promising talent. Suddenly, Desmond's tone changes, and he reveals that the commander's condition isn't incurable. He explains that in the dungeon they're exploring, there are still unknown treasures and items that could hold the key to his recovery. He mentions that a legendary treasure might exist in the dungeon, capable of curing any physical ailment. The commander smiles slyly, stating that it makes sense for an item like that to be found there. He gives Desmond a new mission: find that item as proof of their teamwork. Clenching his fist, the young mage accepts the challenge, filled with newfound determination. His eyes shine with resolve as he solemnly vows to keep his word. His comrades excitedly join the cause, ready to help with the search. The commander, from his bed, tells Desmond he has an important and immediate mission for him. The scene shifts to a large hall in the guild, where a growing murmur can be heard from the crowd. A multitude of adventurers has gathered, all waiting expectantly for an upcoming announcement. Rumors are circulating through the crowd about the commander's hospitalization and the uncertain future of their brigade. An authoritative voice from the balcony demands silence from the restless crowd of adventurers. An official confirms the commander's hospitalization and announces a new mission and a change in leadership. Someone's footsteps echo on the balcony, heightening the tension before the big announcement. To everyone's surprise, Desmond is named the interim commander of the 5th Brigade. The crowd erupts into astonished murmurs, disbelieving the young mage's unexpected promotion. Overwhelmed by the attention, Desmond nervously addresses the crowd, unsure how to begin his speech due to his insecurity. He admits his shortcomings, but shows his determination to lead them, just as he braces for the worst. A supportive voice cuts him off, assuring him that nobody has any complaints. His old guildmates cheer for him enthusiastically, pledging their loyalty and promising to shut down any haters. Moved by his comrades' trust, Desmond stands tall with newfound confidence, ready to take on his role. With tears in his eyes, Desmond accepts his new duty, vowing to do his best. With his new position, the young mage leaves the hall to begin his first mission as leader. His old friends see him off enthusiastically, celebrating his promotion and ready to follow him. Meanwhile, the 2 female warriors spy from a corner, planning to join the next adventure. The ice-blooded princess, blushing, admits she wants to go, while her companion teases her for her unexpected shyness. A bandaged hand waves goodbye to Desmond and his group, wishing them luck on their departure. Out on the street, a female adventurer shamelessly flirts with Desmond, making her friend jealous. The young mage is surprised by the sudden squabble between the 2 girls for his attention. His attention is diverted to a window where he sees the commander laid up in his hospital bed. The sight of the weakened commander and, on breathing assistance, reminds him of the urgency of his mission. Despite his condition, the commander sends him off with a confident gesture, sure of his success. Desmond returns the wave with a beaming smile, filled with newfound hope. With their spirits lifted, the group sets off, leaving the guild behind. From the window, the commander watches their departure with a smile of satisfaction. The scene shifts to a lush forest under a clear sky, the destination of their journey. Finally, the team arrives at the imposing and dark entrance of the dungeon. Taking on his role as leader, Desmond prepares to guide his team into the cave. Driven by excitement, one of the female warriors rushes ahead, ignoring her companion's warnings. The story flashes back to an earlier moment, showing a mysterious silver-haired young man already seriously injured. A close-up reveals the young man's face, unconscious and badly wounded after a devastating battle. A mysterious woman approaches the injured young man, scolding him for his recklessness. Powerful healing magic flows from her hand, enveloping the young man in a green aura. She unleashes a large-scale healing spell, a vital energy that completely covers him. The young man coughs, reacting to the torrent of magic, as his wounds begin to close. He slowly opens his eyes, the healing light reflecting in his gaze as he regains consciousness. Floating in the air, he furiously swears he won't forgive the woman who left him in that state. The scene cuts to a green-haired woman who asks him with an air of superiority. He'd found someone useful, his fist clenched in rage. The silver-haired young man confirms he found the person he was looking for. His target is none other than Desmond Stiv, a mage who uses a unique enchantment magic. A malicious gaze with a purple glint reveals a sinister plan brewing in the darkness. A horrible memory torments the young man, showing how he was brutally attacked with a strange red magic. Desperate, he yells at a woman named Kate to stop. His face contorted in panic, he begs her to stop using recovery magic, as his body can't take it anymore. The scene reveals a sinister woman, watching with amusement the result of her overwhelming power. With a chilling calm, she admits she has overdone it with her victim once again. Her purple eyes gleam with interest as she thinks about Desmond, considering him a fascinating target.